The views and opinions in this program are not those of CISA 7 or Spectrum.
All right, then I will entertain.
You have to do roll call first.
Roll call first? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
It's on the,
Ready?
Go ahead.
Maloney?
aye, here.
Here.
George?
Here.
Echo? Here. Becker?
Here.
Coin?
Here.
Shelton? Here.
All right, we have 7 board members present, and I'm joined on my left by Dr. Michelle Langefeld and our Board Secretary Sandy Heller. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session.
I move that the board convene in closed session, room 337, pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85, paren 1, paren E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business, whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, or more specifically to wit, dependent eligibility verification audit contract, and the school resource officer contract, and pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85, paren 1, paren C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, to wit, superintendent's performance evaluation. The board will reconvene in open session at 6 p.m. pursuant to Section 19.85, paren 2, Wisconsin statutes, to consider the balance of the agenda.
Second.
Sandy?
McCoy?
Aye.
Shelton? Aye. Becker?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Sitnikov? Aye. Warren?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Carried 7-0. We'll convene across the hall.
You're gonna talk. Feel free.
When does that come? Oh, here, okay. All right, we'll resume in open session. This is our regular board meeting.
Bless you.
And we'll begin, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'm going to read our mission statement. We educate all students to be college, career, and community ready, inspired to succeed in our diverse world. Next is our open forum. This is a time for members of the community to speak before the board. The board will provide our community with 2 different opportunities during tonight's meeting to speak before the board. All speakers must fill out a form indicating their desire to speak. If you wish to speak during tonight's open forum, you may do so with respect to items that are posted on tonight's agenda or any other matter you wish to share with the board. Please know that Wisconsin's open meeting laws prohibit the board from conducting business on matters brought during this open forum. The board will also permit public participation during agenda items that the Board of Education will be voting on, as noted on the board's agenda. During this public participation time, consistent with state and federal laws, board members may engage in dialogue with the speakers. In order that all voices are heard, the board will suspend engagement until all speakers have had a chance to speak. Please keep your comments to 5 minutes. The timekeeper will let you know when your 5 minutes has ended. Prior to starting your comments, please provide your name and address. Lastly, demonstrations during public comments, such as clapping or cheering in response to either public comments or statements made by board members, are prohibited. At this time, I have 5 people that are interested in speaking. I'm going to call you up in the order that I received the sheets. First is, I think it says Valerie George.
Valerie George. I could give my
My personal address or
Yes.
my work address? Okay,
Your personal address.
1601 Coronation Court, Green Bay, Wisconsin, 54313. Okay, once again, my name is Valerie George. I'm the Development Director at the Howe Community Resource Center right across the river. At Howe Community Resource Center, our mission is to ensure that all children and their families are safe, healthy, and ready for academic success. Our work begins prenatally and goes until 12 years old. In fact, we also do have some parenting programs for parents of teens as well. The reason I'm here tonight is because we are thrilled to announce that Howe Community Resource Center has been selected to participate in Give Big Green Bay this year, which is a 24-hour online giving event where donations are matched by the Green Bay Packers. As you may be aware, we have had amazing school years so far as the lead partner in the Howe Community School Initiative. We are providing students and their families with school supplies, healthy snacks, winter gear, extracurricular activities, emergency financial assistance, and busing for those without reliable transportation to school. Also, we held a pop-up pantry for families during parent-teacher conferences in November, and we were able to give every Howe student and their family, through generous community support, we were able to give each of them at least one holiday gift in December. As we move forward with the community schools effort, we recognize how much more needs to be done to remove barriers to learning for these students and their families. So we are asking everyone to consider giving at Give Big Green Bay so we can continue to raise money for the Community Schools Initiative. All money raised in the 24 hours will go to the community schools, both at Howe Community School and other schools that will take part in this initiative in the future. So we're asking if you would consider giving to Give Big Green Bay, that you would go onto their website at givebiggreenbay.org between noon on February 20th and noon on February 21st. There's instructions on there. You select Howe Community Resource Center, give a donation, and we hope to do a really bang-up job this year. You can also like Howe Community Resource Center on Facebook and share all of the thousands of posts we're going to have in the next few days. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Next is John Yankee.
Hi, my name's John Yankee. I live at 319 14th Avenue, Green Bay, Wisconsin, 54303. I'm here to talk about one of the items that's coming up about considering cuts to teacher benefits to balance the budget. I had attended on Friday, I was at the State Superintendent Parent Advisory Council meeting, and we got to meet with Carolyn Stanford-Taylor. And she had talked about how one of the initiatives in the upcoming state budget that they want to get through is to have all full-day 4K and half-day 3K at the 5 largest school districts in the state, and Green Bay being one of those school districts, they would be one of the areas they'd want to do that. And so one of the concerns I have when we talk about cutting benefits for teachers is that if this initiative goes through, we're going to be looking at hiring teachers. And I think that cutting benefits is not going to be the best environment to then go out and recruit teachers. The other thing is, when I look back at the history of things that the board has done, we seem to find money for things that all of us do in our lives. We find money for things that we consider a priority for us. And so the public school district found money to put a new roof on the Whitney school building that they ended up not using. We spent money for the building for the John Dewey Academy of Learning, which now we're moving to a new building. And so I just think we need to make teachers a priority and find ways to find other places to have cuts. And the other thing is the new budget, there's talk, bipartisan talk, it's not one side, that the new budget is going to increase education funding. And so I just think as a board and as a district, we need to find more creative ways to balance the budget until we figure out what we can do and do what we say we're going to do and put a focus on the classroom and the people we put in front of our students to teach our students and make them a priority. So that's all I had.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, John. Next is Crystal Brown.
Good evening. My name is Crystal Brown, and I reside at 126 Gray Street in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I'll be speaking on the wellness plan. I'm a member of Green Bay Advocates for Public Education, and I'm speaking on their behalf. I am a psychiatric mental health nurse from this community with experience in child and adolescent mental health. We find ourselves in a time where headlines call to attention mental health crisis in our communities. Rates of depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and even youth suicide are on the rise. There are challenges to accessing formalized treatment and care, and communities and schools are tasked with addressing these issues to support the whole child. There's increased pressure on our schools and teachers to maintain and increase performance on standardized testing, which has led to difficult decisions having to be made with limited resources. Where offerings such as physical activity and creative arts were commonplace in the past, they currently have been replaced with increased emphasis on literacy and math. Teachers struggle to balance what they know to be evidence-based through their professional training with changing expectations. We need to ask ourselves, where is the child left in all of this? The formula is not adding up to what is needed to help promote overall well-being, mental health, and achievement for every child in order for them to meet their potential. As we engage in developing the wellness plan for Green Bay Area Public Schools, it is our responsibility to look at ways to promote total wellness for our students, which I would suggest include adequate access to recess, play, and movement. In addition, we may support our teachers and multidisciplinary teams to provide the time, structure, and resources to engage students physically in order to promote their ability to perform academically and live well-rounded, adjusted lives. National recommendations are that children get at least 60 minutes of daily physical activity. This activity is linked to improved academic achievement, including grades and standardized test scores. The Society for Health and Physical Educators recommends a bare minimum of 30 minutes of movement per day for all ages, to include 20 minutes dedicated to recess that should be occurring before lunch. This recommendation is separate from a standard for daily physical education, to include a minimum of 150 minutes per week for elementary age students. Currently, there are inconsistencies between schools in the district, with some schools falling short of these recommendations. Imagine the United Nations promotes human rights of 1 hour of outdoor exercise daily for prisoners, and in the US, prisons ensure mostly 2 hours. In revamping the wellness plan, it is essential that we look at the evidence from the fields of education and physical and mental health to set our standards. We need to partner and benchmark with other schools, looking at examples such as Kaleidoscope Academy in Appleton, which has highlighted last year in the Huffington Post for their implementation of programs such as Active Schools Core 4+, a program endorsed by the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, which addresses interventions for age-appropriate movement needs, taking into consideration low or no-cost activities and interventions. We need to consider recommendations of the CDC with models such as the whole school, whole community, and whole child model. Physical activity is a basic physiological need. And when we look at theories of development such as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, in order to reach a goal of self-actualization or the ability of a person to meet their full potential, as well as their psychological needs, the base of the pyramid for achievement includes meeting needs such as nutrition, warmth, and rest, but furthermore, we need to consider the needs of movement. As we better understand how the brain works, higher level thinking and learning, which involves the academic curriculum and test preparation that we are tasked with, cannot occur when a child's brain is dysregulated. All children need to have regulation of their primitive brains, looking at the brainstem, which is impacted by physical movement and exercise. When the brain is regulated at the stem, it allows the child to then move through regulating emotions in their limbic system and then progressing higher to cognitive learning in the prefrontal cortex. So higher cognitive skills are required for literacy and math. This pathway of regulation in cognition only gets interrupted further when you throw in the challenges such as trauma, which we know is increasing in our community. We must meet the students where they are at and address these basic needs so we are setting them up for success. If a child is dysregulated, it doesn't matter how much testing prep comes into play, they won't meet our expectations when their bodies and neurochemistry are craving movement and sensory stimulation. Physical movement, breathing exercises, brain gym activities, rhythm, all these things can help regulate the brain and emotion and promote learning. Recess and play also support time for social emotional learning, problem solving, and critical thinking, and they provide opportunities to support development of self-efficacy of the student. These are interventions of time and activity that better equip our students to learn the skills needed in conflict resolution and engagement with others. Screen time is on the rise for youth, and they've been bombarded with media activities and that are socially isolated. May I continue? I just have a minute
She
more.
asked for 6 minutes ahead of time. Is the board okay with? that?
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Please continue.
go ahead.
I thought
Thank
it was
you.
a fire alarm, go ahead. I was ready to file out single file, go ahead.
Thank you so much. So with this increase in media and activities, our children becoming socially isolated, we continue to see a rise in anxiety and depression, and behaviors that are rooted in physical and emotional dysregulation are becoming disruptive to the entire classroom, impacting the learning of others, and requiring additional one-to-one resources and referrals to special education and behavioral health, which cost increased amounts of dollars for our school districts. Low levels of physical activity and fitness adversely affects academic achievement, and there is greater disparity in this among minority youth. The base of the pyramid of our children is weakening. They are coming to the table with fewer bricks at their base, weakening their likelihood of being successful in meeting the ever-increasing expectations that we place upon them. We have the opportunity to provide them with more by engaging each other in solutions. Recess and movement are just one component of the overall needs of this challenge, but it is something within our sphere of influence. We are asking that interventions such as morning recess and increased opportunities for physical activity throughout the school day be an essential component of the wellness plan. It's decisions such as this that will become the foundation of learning, which will help improve academic achievement. But more importantly, what matters is that we are helping students and supporting them in promoting the whole child and helping foster their potential to live the lives that they truly deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal.
I have a question.
Okay,
Can I ask a question?
uh-huh, depending on what it is, but go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for that. It's music to my ears, so. What is your opinion on removing recess and being used for punishment? So if a child is for discipline, if there's an issue in the classroom, do you have any thoughts on that? And that's done?
That's a great question. And with the research that's out there, when we look at the field of trauma-informed care in psychology, that can be detrimental. Using that as a punishment does not build the rapport that we need to engage our students with. And especially when we look at cases of trauma, we have kids coming to the table with punitive measures happening at home, and that's just going to further disintegrate that rapport. The kids need to move, and we have to look at what's causing the root of that behavior. Are they not getting enough movement? Is there trauma happening at home that we're not intervening in? That impacts their ability to regulate and be active in the classroom. So I would agree that would not be appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Crystal, if you want to leave that, if you're willing to leave that with our secretary,
Definitely.
with
I have
Sandy.
copies.
Oh, you do have copies, okay, all right.
Thank you so much for your time.
I know.
I did, I took it.
I do too, so.
Next is Bob Lotto.
My name is Bob Lotto, 1657 Cormier, Green Bay, 54313. I just have a question about the committee that was formed for the expulsion. If there's any update on that, any information coming out from that committee yet? And if it's going to be made public, the outcome of the committee and the study on the expulsions? Can anybody answer that? Is there anything being done with the committee? Any information?
I don't know.
That's a question.
Go ahead.
Can you tell us which committee you're referring to and where you heard about this?
I read it in the Press Gazette that one of the board members was going to start a committee, and I had called and asked to be on it and wasn't
that's
asked to be on it.
Did we talk on the phone?
Yep.
Oh,
I think maybe, why don't you,
it's a community group, so it's not
Oh.
a formal committee through the school board, so we can talk afterwards if you would like. We
Or-
haven't met since December because of the snow, so perhaps that's,
I'll give you his contact information.
Is that
and
okay
then-
with you?
And Christina can call you, because we
Yeah,
technically
I'd
can't.
rather have him call me if you got all the other agenda items to cover.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't, technically, we can't talk about this because it's
Oh.
not on our agenda. That's why but Christina can certainly call you
yeah.
Yeah.
and talk to you about that.
Can I give you my number then?
Yes, we have it
I have
here.
it
Oh, you
So,
do? All right. Thank you.
Yeah,
We'll
thank
give her
you.
your card right here.
yeah, well, Sandy, you'll need to make or here, just pass it down, you can copy it off. Okay. And the last form I have is Noah Becker.
All right, I'm Noah Becker. I live at 1254 Reed Street, Green Bay, Wisconsin, 54303. So I wanted to talk briefly about the extension to the school day that all board members were made aware of. And basically, I wanted to reflect the opinion of students the best I possibly could, given who I have asked about it and asked opinions of. So what I found, I asked as many people as I could in the days after the changes were announced, and I can honestly say I did not talk to a single student who liked the new plan or thought it was a good idea. I talked to a few who were negatively impacted by it because they had to leave pretty much exactly at 3 when West ends to get to work on time. So they had to make arrangements with their employers, and so that was an impact that was something that was affected. Everyone said that they thought that June 10th and 11th at the end of the school year, which would be coming back on a Monday and Tuesday, would be used instead of a plan that extended the school day. They thought they would just extend the year if it were necessary, given the minutes requirement by the DPI. However, because that didn't happen and because the district seems to be trying to avoid that, that's why the minutes were added to the day, of course, because you still have to make up the overall number of minutes. I basically just wanted to tell you that I have no students are particularly thrilled by this, and I will eventually hope to get it onto an ICSC agenda where we can talk further and there can be dialogue with the board and the students on that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Noah. Is there anyone else this evening who would like to speak before the board? Seeing none, then we'll go to our agenda. We took roll call before we went into closed session at 5 o'clock, but I did want to introduce our 2 Intercity Student Council members that are here. Owen Brennan? Okay, they left the R off, so that's what I thought. Who's from Preble High School, and Mallory Fritsch from East High School. And they both have engagements or things to go get to, so I know that you'll be leaving early tonight, so which is fine. And then all right, I would entertain a motion for the minutes. Anybody have that?
I move that the minutes of the regular board meeting dated January 21, 2019, special board meeting dated January 31, 2019, and closed sessions dated January 21, 2019, and February 4, 2019, as presented, be approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. We have no communications to place on file. Next is monitoring reports, and that'll be facilitated by Laura McCoy.
Brenda, we're going to be getting an update on Washington Middle School.
I can't see very well.
I don't know, Rhonda, seriously. I'm not at...
No?
Wait.
I mean, if it's not
Wait.
even possible.
No, hold on. Color management, monitor.
It just feels darker. And if
Can
it's
you
not.
go in?
No. Don't.
It is dark.
It is, isn't it?
It is.
Good evening.
It's fine.
John Magus, Associate Superintendent for Continuous Improvement. And tonight we'll be sharing our mid-year review of our improvement efforts at Washington Middle School in partnership with the American Institute for Research. Joining me tonight in presenting are Katie DeVillers, Director of Student Services, Cindy Olson, Principal of Washington Middle School, Donna Warthen, AIR Project Manager, and Judy Wiegand, Executive Director of Secondary. We are seeing good signs of progress at Washington, deepening engagement by students, significant improvements in student behavior, and a greater cohesion by staff, thanks to clear and caring leadership of Principal Cindy Olson and her dedicated team of teachers, staff, and administrative team. This work is tracked by our measures of success, and I know that you've had an ability and opportunity to some extent to monitor some of our measures through the school board data dashboard. We realize that this is a work in progress, the work here at Washington, and there's significant work yet to be done. Yet, we're encouraged by the positive results of our first semester.
All right, so we will start. Again, I'm Cindy Olson, I'm the principal at Washington. We'll start by talking about the process that we've done with AIR and our mid-year reality check that we did. I'm going to let Donna give an overview of what the reality check is.
Thank you so much for inviting me this evening. AIR's reality check is a process that we put into place with all of our schools that we work with that are going through the improvement process. Really what it allows us to do and the school to do is to look at our school success plan that is often developed in the summertime and have that mid-year stop point to really dig deep into the data to see where we are progressing as we move towards the goals that we've set for the end of the year. One of the things that's unique about Washington and our work here in Green Bay was we also included the co-interpretation over the summer, which brought a large number of community and staff members together to look at data collected from the end of last year to really give us that starting point of where is it that we see we need to focus for Washington in the areas of academic as well as student social emotional learning as well as teacher-student relationships in the building. So having that unique opportunity to then use that to align it to the goals of the school success plan have really led to a very enriched opportunity during our mid-year reality check that we don't typically always have available to us in our other locations. We were lucky enough to have Cindy and I recruit 19 staff members to be a part of this process. The day really starts with the group looking at and reviewing the plan that was developed over the summer, looking at the data points that were collected through the year in regards to what was identified in those measures of success. What are we looking at as leading indicators to help us determine at the end of the year what our success is going to be, how our students are going to demonstrate their mastery of their standards. The groups were divided into a math group focus, an ELA literacy focus, and then we focused on the teacher-staff relationship portion and our CLTs. From that, we were able to then develop an action plan in moving through the remainder of the year. And really the reality check gives everybody that opportunity to pause and as a school look deeply at where we currently are, what is currently working, what do we need to adjust mid-course, or what do we need to even add to begin to implement that may help support our students and their learning. So that's where that 40-day action plan comes into place. And I believe Cindy was able to link those plans for you to look at. And really what we then do is work with the collaborative learning teams within the building, which consist of all the grade level teams, and the administration, and align the support then from AIR to help lead that charge to the end of the year in reaching our goals.
So through the reality check, the 40-day plans that we've developed, that's our constant focus and our constant look back as to making sure that the work that we're doing is getting us to the end goal, which our 40-day plan gets us to the Wisconsin Forward Assessment, and making sure that we're doing all that we can between now and mid-April when we take the Wisconsin Forward, because that's one of our lagging indicators as a measure of success for our students and a measure of success for the work that we're doing at Washington connected to academics. That's an academic measure. There's many other measures connected to things that aren't connected to academics. Oops. Oh, you all know that I'm not very good with this clicker. See? Oh. All right. So one of our measures of success is looking at the percentage of students with a predicted score of basic or above on the Wisconsin Forward based on their STAR score. So our goal is that 49% of our students are proficient in ELA, or above basic in ELA, and that 42% of our students are above basic in math when we take the Wisconsin Forward. When you look at our ELA data, we're headed in the right direction. The work that we're doing is having an impact. You'll see that we're getting closer to our goal. We have updated these numbers a little bit because with the with the STAR assessment, we did do a February window for the assessment because of the snow days. We had this perfect week picked out to do the STAR assessment. That happened to be the week that we had 2 days of school. So it didn't quite work out that way. So then we added a week, but that was the week that we only had 3 days of school. So now it was the end of this last week. So we had to get the information to you before that. So the numbers are slightly different. I can give you the updated numbers if you like. They're a little higher in all areas, which is excellent, and that's due to more students taking the assessment within the window, where before we had a couple groups of students or a couple classrooms that hadn't quite gotten to the STAR assessment. Excuse me. Another really positive for the use of this data is that all of our students that are eligible to take the STAR assessment are being assessed, and we're using this tool as it was intended, as a screener and as a data point for us to help gauge where students are progressing. And part of the work that our CLTs are then doing is taking the students' performance on the STAR, looking at areas where we have a greater number of students struggling, and that becomes an instructional focus within the classroom. So one of the areas that we knew right away was citing textual evidence. That's a big, huge piece of the Wisconsin Forward. And our students showed that that is an area that they needed some additional instruction on. So not only are we using that terminology in literacy or ELA, we're also using it in science and social studies and math, that concept of citing textual evidence. So it's a term that's used across all content areas to make sure that our students understand that, so that then when it comes time for the assessment, they have just another tool for them. This doesn't show the conversations that we've had with students about how they feel after taking this last STAR assessment. So we, in addition to having them do the assessment again, we told them why. We told them that we're going to be using the data to predict how our school's going to do. We're using the data to predict what classes and what upper level classes they can handle, and what additional supports they might need in literacy and math. And then we also told them that we're going to be mailing home their assessment results. That one maybe was the hardest for them because their parents were going to get a copy of their assessment scores. And we'll be sending those out this week because we just finished all of the assessments at the end of last week. One of the students came up to me in the hallway after the assessment, and she said, "Mrs. Olson, I went up an entire grade level in math. I didn't know I could do that." And I looked at her and the teacher standing next to her, who happened to be her math teacher, in unison, without looking at each other, said, "I knew you could do it." So just helping the students see that they are capable. They do have the skills that we need them to have. And then we'll work on building those skills where they have deficit areas, I think was probably one of the biggest successes. I was talking with the math CLT after school today, and a student went up 2 grade levels with the assessment, just knowing the why behind it. I think some kids didn't quite take it seriously before. So that's our measure of success for the STAR. There we go. Okay. Our measure of success on attendance, we're looking at students that have chronic attendance issues, so 15 days or more, and we're showing improvement there, that our students are improving on their attendance rate. So that work is helping as well. We did have our school social workers and guidance counselors met with students that were having concerning attendance, and then had them set goals. And those students that met the goals had a celebration for improved attendance, and you'll see a picture, a selfie that was taken with them at the end of the presentation in our celebrations.
Can I ask a quick question?
question about
Sure.
that, Cindy? Did you notice any themes or trends with your students who were that were caught up in this, in the chronic absenteeism?
Again, our social workers were the primary point people on it. Yeah, I didn't notice any trends. I think sometimes it's that whole awareness piece that when you tell them, did you realize you've missed a quarter of the school year? That then that number connects with what's really happening, and I think part of it is an awareness.
Thank you. Good question. Do you think the ticketing for truancy played a part in that?
There are some students that have improved attendance based on the conversations that we've had, both prior to receiving a ticket for truancy and then after receiving a ticket for truancy, because after the students received the ticket for truancy, we then met with them again, letting them know that if their attendance improves between the time of receiving the ticket and the time that they have a court date, we will go to court or speak to court on their behalf, that they should not be fined or held responsible for that because they have improved their attendance. This, for me, is probably our most exciting data. The number of students that have shown improvement in disciplinary incidents. So this is the cohort group of 7th graders. So any 6th grader that was there last year is in this 7th grade data, and any 7th grader that was there last year is in the 8th grade data. So 71%, more than 71% of our students are on track to have fewer disciplinary incidents, and almost 83% of our 8th graders. So that to me is very exciting data. I think this is a different focus on discipline, thinking of other things to do with students and for students rather than suspending them. We all know suspension does not work. It doesn't change behavior. Relationships, conversations, restorative practices, those things change behavior. So having more of those conversations, slowing down on our decisions, really finding out what the needs of the student is to help increase their engagement with school versus sending them home. So that's, I think, where the change in this data comes from. And then we have our students complete a reverse DOT survey where they identify teachers that they have relationships with. So it's quite a process to put together the survey, but now that we have it this year, we're planning on repeating it in the spring. So 97% of our students have identified that they have a trusting relationship with at least one adult in school. To break it down a little bit more, 9% of our students picked 1 to 2 adults. 14% of our students picked between 3 and 5 adults. 22% of our students picked 5 to 9 adults. And 52% have 10 or more. The average is 13. So, which is really exciting. And then we had conversations with there was a part of the survey where students could add information if they picked 0 adults. Tell us a little bit more about why. Because to me when I was in school, it was important for me to connect with my teachers. But for some kids, they wrote, this is not important to me to connect with my teachers at school. Or I have enough adults outside of school that I don't need people in school. And for some students, it really is a trust issue. They stated, I don't trust people outside my family. So that's their reason for no. That information with who picked no adults was shared with our admin team, and we're chatting with and checking in with those students. We do have other ways for them to be involved in school with after-school clubs or after-school activities that they can get involved with. So it's not that we're just writing them off, that we don't want to have relationships with them either. We're actually reaching out to them, not going to them and saying, I know you didn't put down anybody on the survey, but having conversations with them to build relationships with them.
Cindy, can I ask, are you doing it in the other direction? Are you doing the standard DOTS procedure as well?
We haven't done the standard DOTS procedure. Not saying that we won't.
Is it in the works? I mean, are you planning to?
It's not in the works right now.
Can you clarify what that is?
Sure. So we did reverse DOTS where you ask the students who they have relationships with, and the standard DOTS survey is where you list every student in the school,
And every teacher goes around the room and connects and puts a dot by students that they have relationships with. So it's the adults identifying who they have a relationship with. Then you reflect on those students that don't have a lot of dots by their names, and how are you going to work to support them. So it goes both ways. There's research that says it's important that adults connect with kids and that kids connect with adults. It's important who the kids connect with as well. So we do it, we just did it the other way.
Thank you.
Yep.
So we have submitted the January monthly report for AIR. One of the things that I really want to make sure that I'm sharing tonight is that our coaches, Tad Johnston and Doug Fireside, have really developed very strong relationships with the staff this year, and have really gone into these CLTs and working collaboratively with those teams to really identify best practices that research shows have the greatest impact on student learning, but also in working with the teachers and the teams on developing aligned assessments to ensure that we're measuring what we've taught to be able to determine if there are areas of need so that reteaching may take place, whether it's an after school or during an intervention or lunch block. Also, part of the work in taking our 40-day plan is our team working with the teachers every step of the way of the implementation. So if we're looking at developing lessons that are aligned to the standards we've identified as high need, perhaps in mathematics, Tad is working with those grade level teams to design those aligned lessons, and then to ensure that those either exit tickets or formative assessments are aligned to what we're teaching, to ensure that the data we're collecting is truly, again, keeping us on that trajectory of what our goal at the end of the year is going to be. So in the January report, and all of the reports that you've seen thus far, they really want to make sure, and we want to make sure, that you're seeing how that support can come through professional development, co-teaching and co-modeling in the classroom, could be co-planning either with individual teachers, department chairs, grade level teams. So I want to say on behalf of the team that that collaboration and those conversations have grown from more of a leading the conversations to more of facilitating and being part of those conversations. So you'll see that in the January report, and you'll see more in the February through April reports, more of that alignment specifically to that 40-day plan and the action steps that we've put into place.
Related to the behavior team support update, the doc that's linked there is what you've seen before, but I want you to notice that things that are highlighted in green have been added since the last time that we had this conversation, and I want to highlight just a couple of them. Within the professional learning opportunities for staff, the first CHAMPS book read session did occur on January 25th, and it was in collaboration with two of our behavior specialists with 2 teachers in the building, and it was very successful. There also was a Trauma 2 module viewing right after that so that we can link trauma to the content in CHAMPS. Another thing that I wanted to highlight within the Tier 1 Universal is that based on the data that they're noticing, they look at data every month as a Universal PBIS team. They're creating a student advisory group. Actually, that one was created and met on February 11th to provide student voice and regarding the Heat Pride Room specifically. And they're going to also have a universal leadership team create the parent guardian advisory group with the same demographic so that there is a parent voice. So those are some highlights. Yep.
So where's the student voice traveling to? So where is that going to be sent to, and how are we going to hear it?
My guess is that the universal leadership team, our behavior specialist would be Dana Hansen, will be taking that to the team, and then their internal facilitator will be bringing it to admin, and it'll go through that route.
Can you say that one more time?
Sure. The Universal Leadership Team is made up of representatives from Washington Middle School. We have an external facilitator, and that's Dana Hansen, one of our behavior specialists, and an internal facilitator from Washington, and they meet with the admin team, so anything that they work on goes through the admin team. And I'm not sure if they've had that discussion with you yet or not.
Yep, we've talked about they had one meeting with, for students to talk about different connections within the building, and they shared what the students thought, and it's powerful. Student
So
voice
is
very
it taken
important.
down on paper? Is it recorded? Is it?
They have a Universal Leadership Team agenda that is shared.
Okay. And that will be shared with us at some point?
It could be.
If we need to.
I would be interested in seeing what that looks like.
I have another question. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was you.
It usually is.
Go ahead. Thank you. I have a question about the defiant behaviors. You said that after the data dig, you've noticed that that's an area of concern. Can you talk a little bit more specifically about how that looks and how you're, I know you say you have an action plan here, but can you just give a little bit more description to that, Cindy?
To what part of it?
Well, it's saying here that the most defiant action behaviors are occurring after a staff member addresses student conflicts or gives a correction. So talk about how you're doing things a little differently and how that looks moving forward now that you've noticed that that's an area of concern.
Yep, we are rolling out a strategy to help students better articulate what the problem is that they are perceiving as a problem. So we're using a strategy that they came up with. It's called COPE. I'm not going to know what the acronym. I can't remember.
Who came up with it?
Our team did.
Okay.
The PBIS team did. I can't. It's problem solving's in there, supports, and we're rolling that out. We talked about it on I think we meet on Thursdays after school, so last Thursday. We are putting together a cool tool to teach students how to cope, which talks about identifying what the problem is, thinking up possible scenarios to solve the problem, and then picking a solution and then acting on that solution. So we were noticing that the defiant, when it came to solving a problem, was more about compromising and working through the problem versus just this is what needs to happen. So helping students give voice to what they need help with, identifying what they need help with, and helping find a way where they can tell us what the problem is versus not being able to tell us what the problem is.
Yeah. Is the student advisor group helping to formulate that plan, or is that not connected, or?
It came out of the data specifically out of referrals.
Okay.
What a referral was connected to.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Question, and I forgot your name, and I apologize.
Donna.
Okay, so I'm interested in knowing, with AIR's work, how similar is the discipline system, the heat pride process, in regards to other schools that you've worked with and contracted with? Because I'm assuming that every discipline system makes, or it affects the ability for the academic work to actually settle in.
I would say that I may be not answering, but I would say that the research really shows that a lot of this stems from the relationships that are developed in the classroom and in the building, going back to that DOTS. And from that, a school can then determine what's the best approach in addressing student behavioral issues. I would say the heat pride process is very similar to processes that we have used and implemented in other areas. But I would also say that modifications or twists to that, again, are going to be made to best meet the needs of the school, and that's going to be based on the observations and the data that's collected. So if you're seeing certain behaviors occur, you want to ensure that the practices that you're putting into place are truly designed to address that specific action versus sometimes trying to use a blanket approach and make it fit. Our research has found that it's better to identify what the actions are, what the issues are, and to develop a process, action steps that are going to address that to ensure success, not only in student behavior, but also in building those positive relationships within the building that are then going to have that positive impact on student learning.
Another, and so how often have you ever experienced where you came in, contracted with a school, there was a process in place for discipline, it wasn't really jiving with what was going on, and have you ever had a situation where maybe someone just said, you know, this actually isn't allowing us to do our work?
I will say, and I'll go back to the reality check because that is a process that we put into place with every school that we work with. There have been things that have come out of a reality check that has shown that certain actions or activities that we have put into place are not addressing the need. And so part of the action plan that then is developed puts into place specific actions to address that. It's the whole thing about the reality check is that, again, oftentimes we spend a lot of time over the summer developing a school success plan or deciding on particular processes or programs that we want to put into place, but we don't always spend the time middle of the year to really take a deep look to see if it's having the impact that we want it to have. And the reality check allows the group of teachers to do that, to then develop and modify any plans that are in place. Because again, our whole purpose is to ensure student success in the building.
And I can imagine if you don't have a discipline system that's working for the way it needs to, that your success isn't as likely either. I mean, you have to have, they both have to work together.
And that's why it's so important in the reality check to start with the goals that you have identified in your plan. Because it can't be about somebody coming in and having their own agenda. It's got to be looking at what do we know about our school, where do we want to take our school, and we need to be open to, that's really AIR's approach, is coming in and not forcing something on you, but supporting and helping you modify what's in place to ensure that you're putting in those research-based strategies and processes to ensure the success.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to help you. There we go. Whew. All right, some celebrations that we have to share. We started supper, which was very exciting. That started January 7th. We serve about 60 suppers an evening, which is exciting to watch. Students come in right at the end of the day, sit down, have something to eat, and then move on with their activities after school. So that's enjoyable to watch. We mailed home report cards to every family. Not just handed them to the students and said, here, take this home to your parents, but actually mailed them to families, which was exciting to do as well. Our student learning advocates are helping with following up on addresses in conjunction with our school social workers with getting family addresses to make sure that we have accurate contact information for our families. Our 500 Club is for students that are meeting expectations in the school. In this last 500 Club, we showed a movie in the auditorium, which is a huge hit. We turned it into a movie theater, minus the popcorn and soda, because of the new carpets and the new seats. So we show a movie that's a recent release. This last group of students was students that had a 3.5 or higher on their grade on their report card, and we had over 200 students attending that event. And then we allow students to buy in to the fun as well with heat bucks. which are our PBIS reward coupon, and that costs $500 to attend the movie with your heat bucks. So that was a huge success. Tracy Ravis, one of our staff is a champion for organizing the 500 Club events every month. Our sixth graders attended the Mine Truckers field trip at Northeast Wisconsin Technical College, which was very enjoyable. They got to see me run across the Oobleck pool. Yes, Michelle, I ran across the Oobleck pool. And we got to watch them put on the vision goggles and try to shoot baskets. There were science experiments all over. If you've not attended Mine Truckers, I highly encourage you to go with one of the schools that goes every year. It is a wonderful event that the Technical College puts on. There were, not only Washington was there, but there were other schools there as well. Hundreds of middle schoolers running around excited about science. It was very engaging. Our seventh graders tomorrow are heading to their job shadows based on their Zello surveys that they do that gets them on their career path. So all of our seventh graders will be going out into the community tomorrow to participate in a job shadow experience in the mornings. That's very exciting as well. If anyone watched Fox 11 Live this morning, they saw that our students were featured for making the Aldo Leopold benches and the garden benches. It was a live news feed, which was very exciting for our students. Some of them did think that they should be paid after being on TV for a short amount of time. We assured them that that would not be the case. And then, of course, our Golden Apple Award. Marisol Evans received Golden Apple Award last Thursday, which was very exciting. She had no idea it was happening. She's a very difficult person to surprise. So that was a very big honor for her and our school as well, to have that recognition within the building. And that's a picture of me with our perfect attendance students in the background. They were called down to the cafeteria, received a certificate and a cookie. They were very excited about the cookie.
I always kept my face off in selfies too.
Yeah. Oh, I went the wrong way. John, I'm not done yet. Good. And then some things that we have going on to care for the caregivers. So our social committee has organized our March. We're having a winter gathering, because it is still winter in March, for our staff. So that's our staff are signing up for that. We have a gnome search. So that's a little garden gnome. He's about 2 inches tall, and he gets hidden around the building. If you find him as a staff member, you receive a treat. And it's a treat of your liking. We do a survey at the beginning of the school year asking teachers what their favorite things are. So that is a picture of Ashley, and I did ask her permission to use that picture because it is quite wonderful. She said, if I took it and sent it to you, you get to do with it what you want. So her big favorite is macadamia nuts. So she got macadamia nuts and a bottle of water. The week before, I gave fruit to another person who found the gnome. So he travels around the building, and if you stop in and you find him, a treat would come your way as well. Facilities, we did an appreciation for them after winter break before all the snow came. So we'll be doing another one once winter cleanup is done as well. Soup and sandwiches. And then a favorite is donuts and bagels. So it's during grading periods. We weren't the best at getting our grades in on time. And we had to open and close the grading window. Well, this last grading period at semester, we had all of our grades in on time for the first time in a while, which is a huge success. Because then report cards can get printed on time, parents have accurate information, our students know how they're doing in class. So that is kudos to our staff for really taking the time to check and make sure those get turned in. And then we do potlucks with all of our early releases. Those will have come to an end because our early releases are coming to an end because of Mother Nature. Thank you very much for your interest in Washington Middle School and allowing us to do the work that we are doing to make it the best school it possibly can be for our students. They do deserve to have an amazing school and amazing resources. So the support that you do in the work that you do and the support that you give us to do the work that we do is greatly appreciated. So thank you.
Questions?
I have one quick question. So, and John, maybe this is for you as well, but you've done an incredible amount of work this year. It's February, right? And there's so much that you've learned. So what do you feel, is there anything at this point that you feel would be of value, lessons learned, something that you could share that would be of value to the rest of our district, right? Because this growth and this time that you've invested, I just think it's important that we always connect it to your experiential learning, how we can grow that throughout the district. So,
you know, one of the things that, and I really appreciate having the opportunity to have a coach work alongside me. And one of the things, one of the mantras that Donna always says to me is, how does it connect back to the data? How does it connect back to the data? And the data has to be not only about the what we do, but the why we do what we do. So numbers, they can't just be numbers. It has to be good for students, and it has to really connect back and refocus us on the important work that we're doing, because in the end, it's for the students, and we always have to keep that at the center of our focus, and our data has to be built around that. So if I've learned anything, I sometimes now say it before I even ask. I know, Donna, what does the data tell me? That has to be where we always look back versus making decisions on hunches or feels or thoughts. It has to be grounded in something, the decisions that we're making.
And I'd say from my perspective, I would echo that. Really, as a district, you remember the non-negotiables that we brought forward focused on 3 different areas of instructional leadership. One was around setting student learning objectives and professional growth plans. So making that learning as an educator and growing as an educator part of what we do every day. The second part was really teams using data. And that's exactly what we see here is the collaborative learning teams and the behavior teams and the overall administrative team going deep with the data. And finally, making sure that we're giving really clear feedback for growth to all educators, sometimes having difficult conversations amongst ourselves and with people around what are the positives, what are the areas that need to change, and giving the true feedback so that people can grow. So those are really areas that we are working on as a district as a whole, but to see it echoed in the work of AIR and see it done with great fidelity at Washington puts Washington so that they're moving really ahead of the curve, which is really promising and nice for us.
Go ahead, Britta.
So there's, in the report, there's a lot of references to coaching, classroom coaching and teacher coaching. Can you just kind of flesh that out a little bit in terms of what the teachers are feeling about that? You know, are they feeling positive? Is it a lot of work? Is it, you know, just kind of give me a sense of how that part of it is going.
That has grown. At first, I think it was a difficult thing to have somebody come into the room that you don't know and don't feel comfortable with. Tad and Doug have both created a tool where teachers sign up for their support. And I have to say that it's gotten to the point now where Tad and Doug have to block off time for certain grade levels or teams or individuals that they need to work with. Because their schedules were getting so full of teachers requesting them to come into their room to either co-teach with them, come and observe them doing a lesson based on the implementation of the lesson plan they created in their CLT, or watching them implement one of the research-based strategies that they've learned, and then debrief and give them feedback. So I would say at the beginning, and again, it goes back to the relationships. At the beginning, very nervous, didn't want that to take place. Now it's being requested. And then with the work and the debrief with Cindy and I, you know, being able to identify, similar to the reality check, where are the greatest needs, where do we need to ensure that we're putting that support, and then having those conversations with the rest of our team as to what's that support going to look like when you go into the classroom.
Okay, thanks.
How are or how is the support staff at Washington being supported? So the monitors, the SLAs, the student learning advocates, the paraprofessionals, are they able to take part in any of the coaching? Is there anything happening? Are they included in meetings? Are they asked for feedback? I mean, I have heard concerns about that, and especially considering that, you know, that's really a lot of times they're the first right of refusal, right? A lot of times when they come out of the classroom, it's essentially they are taking a lot of the biggest hits on the energy that comes from some of the students that are struggling. And I'm just wondering what that looks like for support for them.
Yeah, so we do a monthly meeting with the monitors, and Beth Jakowski, our Dean of Students, leads that, getting input and sharing, getting thoughts on what needs to happen in that department. I meet with SLAs once a week, and we talk about, we have 6 agenda items that we talk about: students, supports, communication, ideas. I can't remember the other 2. And we did start that about mid-January. That's very helpful. So it's myself, our 2 student learning advocates, and then at least 1 other admin team. Some great ideas have come out of that as far as communication, as far as getting just little systems put in place to help with structures, sharing of ideas. So, and then special ed, I think you asked about paraprofessionals. Was it the monitors you were talking about, or special ed paraprofessionals? All support staff, yep. So they work within with their special ed, the teacher that they're assigned to work with. And then Molly O'Neill as our SABA, which is Special Education Building, SEBA. Thank you, Special Ed Building Advocate. Thank you, Claudia. Yep, administrator. Meets with the paraprofessionals to talk with them.
Is there any sort of crisis intervention training or anything happening aside from meetings where they can probably vent and relate what's going on? Is there any sort of professional development that they're receiving?
Well, they're part of the doing the trauma-informed care, that the modules that we all do through the school safety grant. So they've all participated in those. And then as far as other professional development, it would be whatever is provided by the district for special education paraprofessionals. I'm not sure what that looks like. And the monitor meetings, we talk about growth and helping them be better at their job.
So monitors don't have anything specific professional development wise?
I don't know, is there anything I don't know.
At every school, there is a group of staff members that the administrator decides that receive nonviolent crisis intervention training. And I don't have the Washington list right here, but I'm not sure who's exactly on your team, but we could get you that information too if you wanted to
That'd be great, thank you.
Okay, yep.
I just had a follow-up question to Brenda's question. Going back to the coaching and the data, do you have data on how much time teachers have spent individually with coaching? And are you tracking that, and are you looking at trends on how their teaching practices are shifting based on the coaching?
Yeah, that's part of our discussions and our leadership coaching. And it's really looking more, because we're not here for evaluative purposes. We're here to support the growth for adults and students. So it's really looking at where is the support being provided, where are we seeing evidence of success, where are we seeing evidence of need, and then, as I said earlier, Tad and Doug are beginning to block out specific amounts of time during their visits to ensure that those are being met. And I'm going to say it's twofold as well. Part of our work is the teachers will be completing a survey on the work of our coaches to give feedback to us on what they're finding most helpful for them, what their needs are and how we can address that. And that's where we will readjust again to ensure that we're providing the school what they need.
So does it get too in the weeds then to ask at the end, would you be able to estimate the amount of time an average teacher at Washington has spent with a coach? I think that's a value question, right? Because if you're there, that would be something that we can demonstrate as a district to say, this is the one-on-one professional growth that we are supporting teachers in. I don't know if that's possible.
It is.
Yeah.
I have one more question. So with this teacher coaching, let's flash forward in 2 years. Potentially the staff looks different. It's possible. Who's coaching the teachers again?
That's a good question, because part of our end result in AIR's work is really creating for sustainability. So helping to put into place processes that then just become the culture of the building, so that no matter who's in there, who might go to another school, who new might come in, it's just the way we do things. For example, some of the instructional practices that we've identified for literacy that we've put into place. We have our top 5 that are having the greatest impact with the students at Washington. And those are the ones that we're providing professional development on. Those are the ones that we're observing in the classroom. Those are the ones that we're providing debriefs on. Because again, it needs to become ingrained in the culture of the building, so that when we're gone, new teachers are in here, the teachers are able to sustain that process.
I'd also like to add that we have a pretty robust job-embedded coaching model within the district. I think that that's something that's an envy of many districts as far as what we're able to do to provide instructional supports and instructional coaching within, in addition to the more intensive coaching that we're receiving from AIR. I'd say further is something we're doing to impact system is the instructional coaching we're doing with our leadership teams through the Center for Educational Leadership, working on our own capacity as leadership instructional coaches so that we can then coach our principals, and then the principals are able to become better coaches of their teachers. So it's something that really we see mirrored in the AIR work, is something that we're also looking at as a necessity for the whole district.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Just a procedural one. So there were some coaching days, and I apologize if you covered this and I missed it. There were some coaching days that would have been on the days canceled due to weather. Are we rescheduling those?
When we're on site, when we travel in, that's a coaching day. And what happened was Tad and Doug have actually reached out to the teachers when they weren't in session, and actually had virtual sessions with teachers.
Okay, and that's good that they were able to do that. Is that, okay, so they were able to get a full day of coaching in with the virtual
They were able
sessions?
to provide support for the teachers, yes.
Okay.
I just have a few questions, a couple of brief ones and then a bigger one. When you talked about serving supper, Cindy, do you expect those numbers to go up?
I think right now the reason that we are hovering around the 60, 70 is it's cold, and if you need a ride home and your parents picking you up, you go when your parents pick you up. So I do think they will go up in the spring, and then again in the fall
when kids are walking.
Yeah.
Okay. And did I hear you correctly when you said that all the 7th graders are going to be doing a job shadow?
Well, if they've turned in their permission slip,
okay,
because that is district policy.
How many kids is that?
Yeah, right. It's about 250.
Wow.
Yes. So we have buses coming tomorrow, and this is you all do this. The school board supports this through our department,
College and Career Readiness.
Thank you. Yep. Yes. So, and we're not the only school that does this. It's an amazing opportunity. And the fact that it connects to a career path that they're interested in, that's our guidance counselors taking a look at their Zello reports and then finding those partnerships and getting them on the right bus, going to the right place so that they're visiting someplace that they might want to work someday, and learning what education they need in order to work there. Yeah.
All right. Are you planning on doing another movie night? And can we come?
A family movie night?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll have one during the day again. We'll do another 500 Club during the day, and yes, you may come. And then we've done one in the evening as well for our families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be.
Yes.
If the next time you have that,
We showed
maybe you
small
could shoot
foot.
us all
Absolutely.
an invite.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So I'm just going to make an observation here. And you've come before us now, and I'm just addressing Cindy here a number of times, and I just want to say that I feel like you've gotten more comfortable.
Thank you.
In this setting and with the subject matter. Is there anything that you would like school board members to understand about this work that we haven't covered?
You're throwing me off
I'm
there,
sorry,
Laura.
I don't mean to put
No.
you on the spot, and I know that's...
No, I love my job. I really do. There's no hiding that.
It shows.
Thanks. I say good morning to every kid that I see every day, because they're that important. I do. I have not regretted the decision to come here once. I have not second-guessed anything about moving to Green Bay, moving my family to Green Bay, and being the principal at Washington Middle School. I love my job. I love our students. I'm not afraid to tell them that. Yeah, they're, as corny as it sounds, this is where I'm supposed to be.
You are a woman
Thank you.
on a mission there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for sharing that. Any other questions? Go ahead.
One of the things that I've noticed when I've come over there in kind of off hours are some parents, I was privileged to be part of a celebration in the middle of the day, and we had parents from diverse backgrounds there representing our students. Can you talk just briefly about bringing parents to school, and really, how do you engage parents and really see them as your partner in supporting their children?
So our parents are holding our most precious resource in their hands. They are what and who gives us our purpose, really. So when we think about meeting them where they're at, first we have to understand where they're at, and that comes through listening and sometimes hearing things that are hard to hear about how we may be making them feel, or how we may be not coming to the table like they need us to come to the table, and then fixing that. And I've had those conversations with families this year about how they didn't feel that we did that we didn't do right by their child. And anytime someone tells you that you didn't do right by their child, you need to listen, because regardless of whether or not you believe it, as the receiver of that information, that's the information that's being sent. So I think just really being willing to engage with them and listen and be open to their thoughts and ideas about what they need.
And do you offer any flexible opportunities if families don't have, work schedules are so challenging sometimes, and where can parents plug in, I guess?
Yep. We, really, anytime, I think I would be there when they needed us to be there, I guess. And our teachers are willing to do that as well. So we have parent-teacher conferences coming up, and those are evening times available for families. Our staff is there to make sure that they're connecting with kiddos. If families need rides to things, we help figure that out. We will do conferences at their home or at a place where they're comfortable.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. And actually, we one chair here, so we have more coming up. All right. Thank you.
All right, next is our superintendent's update. I'll turn that over to Dr. Langsdorf.
Thank you. We've got beginning with the February calendar, beginning on February 26th, we have our meeting with our students, the ICSC meeting here in the boardroom at 7 a.m. Then we move into the month of March. On March 4th, we have both our teaching and learning and work session meeting and organizational support immediately following, beginning at 6 p.m. March 11th is the regular board meeting, and then we have March 18th through the 22nd is spring break. So that is the calendar. The next item I have is a very important item for a Board of Education, and it is your focus as we move forward to get and reach out to our community for their response on recommendations received from the 3 different task forces and how the district can help address those concerns and bring forward some solutions in response to that. So basically, there is a cover letter that would accompany the survey. And again, this is draft, and we're here tonight to just get your input and making sure that it starts to hit those areas of concern so that the Board of Education has the information that they need to make very informed decisions as we move forward. This would be the first step of this process, beginning with the facilities survey that is responsive and reflective of what was heard in the 3 task forces that were convened over these last several years, and then intended to bring forward community into the conversation around issues of great significance and importance. So it begins with a general introduction from the Board of Education, a communication that talks about the work, then some general questions, and then really getting into how we came to be, identifying in phase 1 the facility study, and there are links if our community wants more information. Phase 2 around secondary schools capacity, and then the boundary task force. And then it really gets into the important parts of what the board is looking to find out from our community. And we put in there the intentional discussion around the reality around our student enrollment. Right now, we're looking at a decrease of approximately 700 students over the last several years, and our open enrollment has remained relatively steady, but we have seen a decreasing enrollment since the referendum. So some of the capacity issues that we anticipated on the east side in particular should be addressed through the referendum, with the exception of Preble High School, which still and continues to remain a concern. So in this draft document, you will see that we've identified, based on what we understand, the Board of Education looking to address 3 central challenges through, and that's why we're gathering the information, both the enrollment over and the enrollment under capacity issues across the district, looking at the potential growth on the east side, and also the equity and access issue that has been a priority of the boards in terms of inequities in facilities. For example, some schools have a gym and a commons, while others may have a very small gym, and it's really looking at those important pieces. And then you'll also see, as we move forward, concerns about transportation as well. So it's really looking into all of the discussions that we've had, summarized, and then putting questions out to our community without identifying, here's an issue here, we would, address this school that doesn't have a lot of enrollment, and how does that look, but more in general, because we don't want the people to think this is done by any means, or that the board has made any decisions about any school, because right now it's really information gathering, and that's what's intended to do. It asks questions about boundary changes. Magnet schools came up with, during the boundary task force, questions around those issues, and opportunities. Potential boundary changes, which I know came up in a number of the studies as well. and what that could look like. And we are fortunate, it references that we can see where student enrollment is throughout the district as well, and getting into these questions. So it's really identifying questions intended to provide the board with information. So going forward then, in the next step, we would start to create some sort of framework or plan and then start taking it out to small groups to get information to provide back to the board as well. So there's a lot to digest in this, and again, we know that there will probably be more time needed to digest it as well. We had an ambitious start timeline to be able to go early March, but obviously we want it done well and right. So this is our first go. It is a draft, and we're here tonight to just get your input, and if there are glaring areas of concern or not enough questions about or what have you, we would certainly welcome that.
Rhonda?
Unless I can't find it anywhere, but it's interesting to me that we know we need to build capacity, or we should be trying to build capacity on the west side, because we have a lot of growth on the east side. And we know that at our west side schools, we have IB programs that are amazing. But I don't see any questions about, I think this is, and I'm saying this because I think this is something we need to be talking about more and getting this out there, as far as the IB program and the awareness of it. We spend a decent amount of money on the program itself and the curriculum, but I don't see that there's anything in here about, are you aware of the International Baccalaureate program? Do you know that it's there? Are you aware of its even existence? I think we underestimate the public's knowledge of that program to begin with. And I think we need to be working hard to educate them on that, and that it's out there, and that it's at West High School where we need to build capacity. I think it's actually something we should be actually actively going into all of the middle schools, and we should be talking about the IB program if we're going to continue it, obviously. I think that's a missed opportunity, huge missed opportunity at Da Vinci School to try to keep kids in the district to go to high school at West High School. I talk to a lot of parents on a regular basis who have no idea about the program. I think we should be doing everything we can to beef up the awareness and the education on the fact that it's out there. And I would love to see some language in here and some questions, just because I think it's like an aha moment. Oh, well, what is that? I think if we're really asking questions and we're discussing facilities and capacity, I think as a district we need to commit to selling that program. And I think we need to commit to selling it to help build capacity on the west side. And I would love to see it somehow included in here. I mean, unless it is, I don't see anything on it.
I don't know that we called out a lot of programs and programmatic information.
Well, there is actually.
There was some references to magnets.
There's the gifted and talented magnet schools. They reference gifted and talented, Montessori, Spanish immersion, the STEM. There's nothing in there about IB, and the reason why it's so important is because it literally connects to building capacity at West. So that's the only thing I would definitely say is really obviously missing.
Yeah, I think that the items in 13 are potential programs, but I was wondering if we could include it in that paragraph, the magnet schools paragraph, so that it's in the list with Aldo, Leonardo da Vinci, maybe with some fleshing out of that, because those are all, because I would look at the IB program as could be potentially a magnet program.
I would, well, and as it should be a magnet program, right? Because it could actually bring students into the west side of Green Bay, which we need them. We already know that.
So we're looking.
The question was just written to address the issue that had been raised by the Boundary Task Force, which was to, they were looking at what other magnet schools could be created on the west side, where the IB program already exists on the west side, which is why it wasn't mentioned. So we were looking at if we were going to create
other magnet schools on the west side, what other things would be of interest, since that one already exists.
So maybe it doesn't go there though, but it's literally not mentioned anywhere.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it can go in that paragraph, the magnets introductory paragraph, where you have all
Sure,
the
yeah, we can rewrite that.
You just add
Or
another.
expand.
Adding a question, asking people's awareness, having them check what, if they're aware of, City Stadium Automotive.
All the
They've had all of
programs.
the IB, I'd be interested in knowing who knows about them.
Sure.
And see what they show. Rather than just putting it,
Well, and would it
as in a
actually be
descriptor.
something that would be interesting enough that they would consider? I mean, I think if we're sending this out to people, they're thinking about our schools in general. It's, to make sure it's in there, it would be missed opportunity if it's not.
Could we could potentially put links, actually.
Well, we're gonna have to rework it a little bit, because while I put the links when I wrote this for the survey company, the background, since, I was probably the most familiar with it, actually putting the links in doesn't really work. We're gonna have to add them at the end, because he said that what happens is when people take it on the phone, they click on the link, it takes them out of the survey to go to the link, and then they often don't return back to finish the survey. So, but we can put all the links for referring information at the end of the survey, so people can go in and look at things further there.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, you could list then all the
Right.
programs at that point. Did you have something, Christina?
No,
Okay.
you're good. You guys talked it through.
My general, I mean, obviously you put a lot of work into this, and you were able to summarize a lot of the work that's been done. My concern is that there might be too much that we're expecting people to read. And there are a lot of questions here that we want them to answer, and I don't know about other people, but sometimes when I do surveys, and I also think that's gonna take people longer than 15 minutes if they really read and think about these questions, because there's a lot in here to read. So I don't know what we can do in terms of, I don't wanna lose people's interest and have them do half the survey and go, this is too much work, I'm out.
Okay.
And yet, I understand the need for some of this background information, but I'm just wondering if it's more information than people are really going to need to be able to answer the question. But I haven't studied it long enough to really say, you don't need this, you don't need this.
Yeah, and I guess I'd really like Joe's opinion on that, because, again, Joe's the outside lens, right? For some of us who've kind of been involved in this process for a long time, we could probably say, oh yeah, that makes sense to us without this piece,
Right.
but he might say the average person who maybe hasn't been following along a lot, that may not make sense without a little bit more explanation. So I guess I'd kind of want his opinion on what he felt we could cut out without losing people in the survey.
Okay.
I mean, it can certainly be shortened.
Yeah.
Our survey that we did on the facility survey was a rather long survey too, and we had pretty good feedback.
Did it have these
response.
long
Paragraphs.
paragraphs
Yeah,
to
it
read
did
in there?
There were pieces, yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right. And maybe I'll just, I'd be willing to go through, but I'm not an expert, so
Yeah, I think the Preble piece is long.
that's the one I'm looking at, is
Yeah.
the specific, I'm wondering about all those percentages at the top.
And, and that doesn't necessarily need to be there. I think that was included, so people sort of knew where were they 2 years ago when they took the survey? And based on the changing projections information, does that really sort of change where their thought process is now? I don't know if it's necessarily all that important. I mean, every one of the task force obviously said some boundary changes are needed. And so that's why there was the question in there about, would they support moderate boundary changes? But I also think we needed to talk a little bit about the fact that any new housing development right now from the village of Bellevue or the city of Green Bay really does land in that Preble attendance area.
Right. Yeah, I just wonder if we can eliminate
Some of the,
some
or
of
summarize
it.
it
Yeah,
in a
maybe
in a
have
way
Joe,
that
who's
makes sense.
kind of, doesn't know all the information, try to figure out the minimum amount of information to help
Sure.
people, you know, have enough information to answer the question, but not so much that they bail on the survey.
Just
Katie?
an editing thing, on the list of schools for question 5, you've got Aldo identified as a 4K8 and Red Smith as a K8, isn't that a 4K8 too?
Red Smith, yes, that's a 4K8 too.
Just don't want people to get the impression they don't have 4K.
And there is, I noticed too, in some of the revisioning of this, there was a missed piece here on question 24. It should say on there, without increasing the school tax levy.
What I'm thinking, Lori, too, is, and I don't know in terms of framing, if there's any other open-ended kinds of questions in a survey like this. I know in the facilities, did we ask open-ended at the very end?
Well, I guess the question be is if the board wants to read through all, all
Yeah.
of those responses. This sort of gives you a
starting point.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And the rationale behind the transportation questions in there was, we heard that as a theme through every task force was the transportation piece. And so it seemed, this might be a nice opportunity to just find out what kind of support there was in the community to kind of maybe do some more extensive pieces around that than we've ever done before.
Yeah.
Without just doing like a transportation survey.
So you want to go live with this next week? Is
Well, I
that-
think we wanted to give you some time to
Time to
digest
think
it.
about it.
And provide feedback.
No, I said originally we
Oh,
talked about
originally.
March 1st, but if you look in the document, we took it out because we wanted to make
Okay,
sure
all right,
that we had
misheard.
enough time for the board to give us as much input as possible. Again, this is draft, and so really getting the input so that we could begin this process. And then, once that information comes back to the board, then we would craft some options based on what is heard and bring it back to the board for further consideration and get it out to groups then and start
So-
quick,
So what do you need, because we don't have to vote on this.
Right.
No, but if people would like a week or so to take a look at it and then provide
Think
me some
about it.
feedback, rather than trying to do that all right here
Yeah, right.
tonight, and when you've just gotten it. And provide any input that you feel is important, changes that you want to see, and then we can get that off to Joe to finalize something then.
Okay.
And then we could probably look at maybe waiting until after spring break so that.
To do it right after.
Right.
You think we would get lost before?
Rhonda?
Is it going to be sent out electronically and paper?
So how we did the facility survey is, it was electronic, there was online Spanish and English. Paper copies were made available at all of the schools in the DOB office, so people could pick up a paper copy if they chose. We sent out a postcard to every resident, so 63,000 postcards with the link for the survey, so people would know where to find it. We advertised it, we would do that again. So we really tried to do a pretty blanket approach to making sure people were aware. We worked with our media, local media, to ask them to kind of promo so people knew to go and look for the survey as well, so that they could provide their feedback.
And how is it going to be explained that it's actually something that they're going to want to take? Like, what is it, how are we, like, succinct-wise, how are we asking people, what is the value of it? Why do I want to take this?
Well, this is about creating the direction of the district, right? So it's really about, we called it Redesign 2020, because it's really about providing the board their feedback and how we look at how are we going to redesign our school system, recognizing that we're going to have to make some changes. We've had this conversation now for quite a few years, and so really we've kind of gotten down to here's what our community has said to us in various task
task forces, here's things that we've discussed as a board, as administration. And so now looking at giving the board some feedback on what are the things they want you to act on.
But if I open up the email, right, I have 5 seconds to get someone's attention of why this matters and why they should take it.
Well, I think it's about creating the direction of the district.
But is that what it'll say? I'm just wondering like how you're going to explain that so that people actually, because we know surveys don't always, you know, give us a return.
Yeah.
So
I think we can look at, you know, like I said, we did the facilities one, and we got really good turnout from that.
Okay.
And we double checked it against census data to make sure that we also had a fair representation of all the various age groups, and we did that as well. We wanted to make sure it just wasn't parent heavy, but that also we had good citizen representation. So I think we would look to use many of the same tactics we did last time to get people to take the survey and provide their input.
So that you need our feedback. What's your deadline?
Is a week enough time, or do we need more time than a week?
a week works.
A week from today?
Yeah, and if there's.
Just directly to you.
That'd be great, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll just collect all that information.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lori. Next item on the agenda is the district wellness policy, and it's a mid-year check-in update. And I know Mr. Flood is here, and Mr. Freeze, and Ms. Chartier. I don't know if she's joining us, and Mr. Magus.
I think Lynette's coming too.
Oh, and Lynette. She's been patiently waiting and smiling.
That's right.
She has.
Well, thanks for having us again. Tonight, we'll be sharing our progress monitoring update on the implementation of our wellness policy and building plans. These plans are based on the policy work of a broadly inclusive wellness committee, and the work was implemented beginning this fall. Wellness is a very important aspect of educating the whole child and a vital part of engagement. Joining me and presenting tonight are Mike Freeze, Executive Director of Secondary Teaching and Learning, Lynette Zelnick, Director of Food Services, and Tim Flood, Administrator of District Co-Curricular Programming. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to touch base. We're going to start by doing a very, oops, are you clicking there, John? I'm
Yeah, I
sorry.
went back.
Okay.
Sorry, here you go.
Yeah, I've got the clicker if it works here. I'll just speak very briefly to orient the audience members as well as the Board of Education about the history and background. This won't take real long at all. I promise we'll give you the current status and next steps, which are the most important thing tonight. Back in 2004, Congress passed the Child Nutrition and Supplemental Nutrition Program for women, infants, and children. The Reauthorization Act was passed in 2004. The district updated or created a wellness policy in 2006. At that time, it was a fairly brief policy, about 1 page, about a 3-page associated rule. Our district's general stance with policy and rule is that the policy is kind of that umbrella statement of main beliefs. The rule provides some additional details to help with implementation on whatever the topic may be. About 6 years after the Congress passed the law, they updated it in 2010, and 6 years after that, the USDA released a final rule. So in the spring of 2016, we came forward to the Board of Education asking for clarification on next steps relative to how we should update and proceed as a school district. At that time, the recommendation was to convene a policy and rule committee in accordance with what was outlined as far as expectations related to health and wellness as outlined by this law from the USDA's policy and rule. So we did bring forward and have our current policy and rule approved, and it is active as of June of 2017. That updated policy is over 2 pages long and has 9 pages in the description piece related to the rule. I mention that because there are a lot of specifics associated with this. And as a school district, we have to make decisions related to how in-depth do we want to be in the policy and rule portion versus how in-depth do we want to be in the plan portion. I know that you're interested in learning about how the plan portion is going. Before we proceed to that part where we get into some of the specifics and details where the policy and rule really come to life, wanted to again thank the folks that participated in the Policy and Rule Committee. At the time, Laura McCoy served as a Board of Education member. Ms. Shelton served as a parent and state coordinator as that portion of the committee, as well as a diverse group of stakeholders as recommended according to law. Again, what is a local wellness policy? It's an opportunity for us as a school district to take a stance on promoting students' health, well-being, and ability to learn. Back in 2016, when we approached the board, we asked about the parameters, the narrowness versus broadness of the work that we should do. At that time, it was recommended that we maintain our focus on students, although certainly staff health and wellness is an important component of our district's commitment to comprehensive education and supporting a thriving workforce. Our current policy and rule focuses exclusively on expectations related to students, as well as guidance for how staff should conduct themselves and ensure that students' health and wellness is supported. It is also important to note that my clicker is not working. Oh, there we go. That this policy and rule, the reason why it became quite a bit more elaborate over the years is because they outline a variety of areas where you need to have both goals and expectations listed. It includes goals for nutrition, promotion, education, physical activity, other school-based activities to promote wellness. It addresses the standards related to nutrition guidelines for food and beverages offered, sold, and marketed, how we are marketing food and beverage to students, accessibility of access to water, for instance, for students, the responsibility of district and school officials for ensuring that we are in compliance as well as committed to health and wellness. It also talked about a plan for measuring implementation. And so along those lines, that's where the main balance of tonight's conversation is going to be about. It's going to be about where are we relative to the status of our implementation, the plan at the school sites, how we're documenting and assuring the public as well as the Board of Education and our school district at large that we are in compliance and committed to this. And also what our next steps are relative to meeting the state requirements related to updating policy again, convening a committee again, analyzing and assessing how things are going. All those things will be touched on this evening. And now our current status.
So in August, we met the district at our admin retreat. We talked to the principals and gave an overview of what the wellness plan would be. And one of the pieces of it was the principal tools and resources internet site that Lynette and the food service team put together.
Can you click on that, Johnny, with the clicker,
that'd be
please?
perfect, thank you. And then click on Google.
Click on Google.
And then
Did this update and it's on the staff intranet?
it's on the staff intranet, yes.
So just click on login. Just click on
Thank you. Everybody close your eyes while she types in? No. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. So when, as Tim said, we had all of our administrators together and we were discussing the smart snacks. We did bring in different snacks and items in for them to take a look at. But one of the biggest questions we were asked is, where can we go to get this information? So what we decided to do as the committee is we put this together for the teachers, for the coordinators, for the principals, for anyone who needed within the district to help support them with the tools and resources that they did need. So
the Smart Snack Calculator, that is a tool that they can use when they are selling items out at a school, that they would be able to take a look at the nutritional information on an item, plug in the information, and it will tell them if it is compliant for them to sell. The next item is NutriSlice for our school meals menu. NutriSlice is our menu planning that we use in the district to make sure that, one, we are compliant with all of our menus that we are serving to our students. Secondly, our school nurses use them because we have a lot of students here that are diabetic or they need other medications. So our school nurses use this daily, and it is live. It is when there is a menu change, it changes. It could be just for that school. One school may get carrots, another school may get corn. We change that. We monitor that very closely. But then also, we also use that for allergens because we have a lot of students that have allergies too. So then if we scroll down to where we have also where it says the Smart Snack information sheet. That information from the USDA will let you know, all of our coordinators, everyone out at the schools, what information USDA is saying we can sell and what we are supposed to sell. But then when we go into the Smart Snack breakfast, lunch, after school snack information, that they call them in a nutshell. All of this information comes right from USDA. So it tells them the calories, tells them what they can and cannot serve or even purchase. And us as a food service provider here for our district, we have to follow those also. Then also what we did put on here is the compliant fundraiser tracking tool and the exempt fundraiser tracking tool. Those have to be used by our schools when we get audited by DPI when they come in. They're gonna ask, can we look at your fundraisers that you have done in your school? Then our school coordinator will pull them out. They will show what they've done, which has been compliant, and what has not been compliant, and all the rules are available for them to look at. The next piece, the healthier middle school, what we have in there is for principals, teachers, parents, food service workers, and students. What is in there, it talks about nutrition and physical activities that they can use at their schools within their classrooms. So it's another piece that we have available for them, and we as a food service, we will change those. We'll change all of that up. Some of the other little pieces that we do within our with our wellness, we always want to make sure that we are engaging our students within the district and outside of the district. And that is when we have events going on at the schools, like although when they do no bus and they'll walk to school, or they have that walk, that they will even contact us. Well, can you please provide a healthy snack for us? It might be oranges or the whole grain cookies, something that fits within the wellness program. So that is where we will engage with the schools.
Great, thank you. So the principals had the option to use either district model plan template that we developed, or they could have had a school-specific plan on their own. They could have created the one that if they wanted that would match or exceed the district plan requirements. All of the schools have chose to use the template that we provided, and you can see that's the template that we use. And within that, the framework, it comes right off the rule of all our goals. And on the one side, it talks about the goals, objectives. You have the minimum district expectations, some examples for the coordinators to look at to see what they're doing in their buildings. And then we have additional building expectations, and then documentation. And the last two columns, so what I've been doing for this year is, as we're implementing this, I have gone and met with all of the site coordinators in the secondary and the elementary buildings. I still have 3 elementaries to hit, but I've gone to every single school and sat down with them, gone through this plan with them, row by row, explaining things, talking about what they're doing in the school. I can tell you that all the schools are are doing this, are following it, they're just not documenting it. So they're working on the documentation piece of it. And what we've talked about is that, you know, when they start, at the end of this year, when they start looking at their plan, finally look at it and go, oh, that there might be a spot that they're missing in here, and to take a look at that, and when they get to their school success plan and their building committees and looking at, hey, what can we do for goals and action steps for this, that could be an area that they look at to implement within their school success plan. So, like I said, we're about halfway through the first year of doing this. I've met with most of the schools, and they're actively working on putting this together. I did put in an example Kennedy Wellness template to show where the Aaron Manners, the principal over at Kennedy, has already inputted a lot of things, put some different.
I think it's got to click in to get there.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know what that was. Something was beeping at me.
So can I ask a question, Tim?
Sure.
So you're going and doing all these visits. Do you have, are these documents in one central location? And are you, other than meeting with them, are you monitoring them? Are
Yes.
you, because I'm a little worried that this one is from 2018, so this is last year's. Like, do we have additional updates from?
No, that document, the template was last
Oh,
updated.
okay,
No, this
okay.
is,
I thought
these
that
are
was from
all,
last year. Okay.
nope, they're all of this school year. And yes, so
Can
they
I
have all.
clarify that real quick?
Yes.
Yeah, so as part of the implementation year, that template was created, and we got feedback from principals in preparation of launching and trying to then figure out what additional scaffolds or supports did they appreciate. That's out of that original template, we updated it to include the examples column.
Okay.
And then as different schools have given us further examples of partnerships they have and links, we've added that to our template, and then but this is the currently
That's the
active.
template.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I
Yep.
thought that was reflecting the year of the
No,
plan, so I
sorry.
apologize
No.
about that.
And yes, all of the principals and site coordinators have sent me, so I have all of the wellness plans in a Google Doc folder thingy. So yes, I have them all. And yes, I do monitor them, I look at them, and I try to, you know, after I get done with these initial visits, I will send another email, hey, make sure you're looking at your wellness plan, make sure, because sometimes it's a little forgotten. You know, the things that are going on within the building, this is one of those things
That
that.
tends to happen with health and wellness, and we forget that it's central to everything that we do. Yeah.
I think
So
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Linda.
What I was gonna say, I think what's really gonna help us though, now moving forward, is the wellness plan at one time, it was something that the districts should have had them from DPI. But now, since when they put that into place in 2016-17, that all districts have to have a wellness plan into place. Now this is something that when they come in and audit our district, which next year will be an audit year, that is when, depending on what school that they come and visit for the breakfast and lunch program, they may say they want to step in too, and I would reach out to Tim, and then he would reach out to the coordinators at school, and they would have to provide that information, because now that is something that we are required to
We're
have.
accountable for it.
Yes, we are gonna be held accountable.
Right. So that goes back to another question I had for you though, Tim, is,
Yes.
you know, one of the requirements is that we have a district level wellness team that is representative of parents and teachers and staff and students. So are you doing this alone right now? Where are we with the district level wellness team that is supposed to be essentially working collaboratively to oversee this throughout the district?
Sure. So the committee, that large 20-person committee, met, worked together. I would say we've met as core members. Mike, Nancy, Lynette, myself, John have met several times. And right now, I'm just working with the implementation phase of making sure they're going out with it. And then at the end of the year, we'll get back together and see what they've done and look at kind of what we're doing, the whole progress evaluation of it.
I would offer that in anticipation of this evening, we went back and rechecked, and the Department of Public Instruction has updated some of its guidance documents. When we worked together with you and others in 2016-17, their old guidance documents did not indicate that a committee needed to be a standing committee, and their new guidance documents suggest that a standing committee does play a role in this process. That is a change in the past 2 years in how they've interpreted the USD implementation. So,
Right, but that requirement from 2017 was in there where it said an ongoing district representative wellness team.
And so we do need to do a better job with this. And I will tell you that as a parent, before I was on the board, I asked you guys to be on that wellness team and no one responded to me. So I'm just saying that because we have parents that want to do this, and we have, and it is a requirement to the, to this work. So I think you need a whole team of people, a group of people who can help you do this, and that needs to be, I think, a key consideration, John, moving forward.
Sure. I think it's important to have multiple voices and perspective. We heard from a community member tonight about the importance of wellness and engagement and thinking about movement breaks for regulation.
Right.
All of those it's so intermingled, wellness with academic achievement, wellness with engagement. Those are such critical pieces that we need to make sure it's part of
But it's also a legal
work.
requirement.
So that actually fits quite well with the next steps, really, which Rule 458, Section 7 deals with the assessment, revisions, and update of language. And at least every 3 years, the district will evaluate compliance with the wellness policy and update the policy with consideration of the following factors. And this is a little bit of a summary of the language within that section, but district or community priorities, wellness goals, new science, information and technology, and also new federal and state guidance or standards. So this is something that's important for us to do, and we recommend that we don't delay, because if there's a change that is going to be better for the community and better for the district, such as having a standing wellness committee, that would be something that we'd like to have as part of our consideration of the work. And what we're recommending is that for consideration of the next steps, that we finish the year so that we can get a year of experience with the plans, looking at what was working well, what wasn't working well, and then make sure that it's well integrated into our work for next year's strategic planning, which actually begins this summer. So 2019-20 strategic planning, we consider how does wellness integrate within the board's guidance in what you would like us to focus on.
Has anyone utilized the local wellness policy report card online tool that's available on DPI?
We have not done that as a district. We have not. One reason is that when you click on it, it is a Google survey that doesn't tell you where your information's going. And that hasn't been, they have other offline checklists that we used in the establishment of the policy and role instead.
Yeah, the template that we use, and Melissa Thiel-Collar, she was with us during the process, and all the policies came from our legal department here. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe our policy came from WASBO, that we had to make sure that we are following all of the regulations, and we are touching base on every piece that we needed to have in our wellness policy.
Okay, so the compliance, right, we're talking a lot about that.
Yes, yes.
Can you restate or tell me again about measuring it so we're knowing how we're doing it, if we're actually serving the people that it's supposed to serve?
Absolutely. If, as Tim touched base on that, in that tool, it talks about that, and some of the acronyms, I know I should not use acronyms, and maybe I shouldn't even be talking about this piece, because it goes back to the Kennedy School, but then it does discuss that, talks about in the classroom what is happening with the 30 minutes of physical activity, and then additional minutes, and how it needs to be tracked, and then that would be tracked and assessed at the end of the year. So that is, as what John was saying, that is something that we want to look at, get all of our information from everyone, and then that's where Tim would get together with the coordinators and then discuss, okay, what worked, what didn't work, how can we do a better job for you with what you need, and then we can move forward to be better for the coordinators for our schools and our students.
And who would we have to talk to put something in this policy that says we do not take recess away?
Well, that would be some of the key recommendations that we would need to look at.
moving forward, because that was something I was gonna mention, is that the WellSat tool that we had talked about, and Michelle, you were in that conversation as well. So for those of you that are not familiar, the WellSat tool comes out of the Rudd Center. It is a quantitative assessment tool that you can use online for wellness policies. This is used nationally, and I actually did score our wellness policy, so we would need to look at the scoring. It's scored on both strength and comprehensiveness. And the comprehensiveness is the breadth, and the strength is the depth, right? Like how much teeth is there in it. And I did put forth to Michelle and John, and we had talked a little bit about some ways that we think we can really add some more strength and strengthen our policy. That was one of the things that I brought forward. And Crystal, I won't even try to paraphrase what you said earlier, because I think in that open session it was really powerful. But and Lynette, we've talked as well about some of the things you are doing that we could also integrate that would bring more strength to the policy. So I don't know, John, if you could speak to that, but how do you see that process moving forward, or like how would you like to have that process move forward?
Well, I think the feedback that you shared with us was helpful, and I was able to share it with our group as a whole. And I think a key aspect is really reforming the committee, if that's what we are electing to do at this point, because it does. You had asked a good question. What would we need to change the policy to make sure that was included? And it's my interpretation that would need to be reforming of the committee to make a recommendation of the change before we could do that. Even though we all sitting here are thinking, oh, that would be great. It would be something that we would want to add. I think the parameters of the policy we have in place are they're basically the guardrails within which there is a moderate degree of autonomy for the different schools and how they're going to implement things. And we had a good conversation too when we have somebody like Lynette as our food service director, who is really doing so many things to not only meet the letter of the law, but to really exemplify best practice that puts us in a certain category. We have to make sure that we're finding that right balance to allow individual schools to have some autonomy in what they do and how they do it, yet give enough guidance so that the best practices that the committee that forms is able to articulate what the community needs and what the district needs together within that policy.
I think one of the things too is when we met with you, Christina, one of the things that was very apparent to me was that the policy is not all encompassing of what is going on in the district. And that was part of, there's a lot of other work that is not in the policy. The policy has not, from where I sit, caught up with what's going on.
Right.
And so it's a deeper look at that in terms of how that alignment piece evolves with the policy. I mean, as the work continues forward, the policy is not fully encompassing or reflective thereof. And so that's the question that I had after we had our meeting is, there's policy, and then we've talked about this, the details and the pieces under the policy in rule may be important as well. As the rule is going to spell it out a little more carefully with much more detail, and that's the other piece that as you grapple with your larger committee looking at all of these pieces, that's the other part of the story. And yep, you have to have some non-negotiables within the framework, obviously your guardrails. But I do think that there's a lot that was not in that policy that is happening. So to get that out to our families as well is important too.
And that's that piece, Michelle, too, of, and I'm actually doing a research study right now on this, is what drives policy? Is it culture, or does the what feeds what, essentially?
Right.
And we know that it's both, right? It's
Right.
not one or the other. And I think, like, going back to what Crystal talked about with recess, we can take a look at our recess, see what elementary schools are doing from an equity lens, and I think there are commitments that we need to be making to say, we do value this, and we do need to give flexibility to schools, but just like we do with a lot of other priorities, we put our flag in the ground and we say we care about this. So I think there are definitely some really clear pieces here. I would love to see this, the growing strength around health education and physical education. This whole policy and our rule sets the stake for our physical education work. And
I know we're gonna get into the more over the summer, but the fact that that wasn't part of this conversation tells me that we need to be paying more attention to it, because it is a key piece. Health education, how are we promoting nutrition, not just in the lunchroom? Lynette, you and I talk about this all the time, so I think it would be strategizing. We had talked about this. We can't do everything, but what can we do? And what can we sort of do quickly, but also, not quickly, but in the short term, but how can we have a long-term vision for how this looks moving forward?
And back to that, I had no idea that we were taking recess away, and that we were actually, because this is happening. It is happening. It is, and
I don't know.
It is happening. It is actually happening, and I think I understand that we're going to have a committee. We're going to discuss moving forward what the next steps are. But this is one of those situations where there are classrooms that, you know, when you've misbehaved, you're not going out for recess. That is happening. So, is there something we can look at as a district to have a discussion with our buildings to ask if this is are we okay with this?
Well, I think that I don't have particular examples of when it's occurred, but if there were particular examples, not that I'd necessarily want to hear at the board table, but I'd like to know so that could be used as a point of conversation with our supervisors. There are, even when something is the most serious rule in the land, there are sometimes violations of that rule or policy that may be in place.
But is that an actual rule? Is that in policy right now? Recess? Mm-mm. It's not.
No, but it is a best practice piece that we're not group punishing and we're not taking away recess. So those are things that we work with our leaders on ensuring are there. But if they're not there, then without specific information or feedback, it's hard for us to carefully monitor that, because I agree, that should be monitored. And I think about quite often the student who might be having a hard time and they're at an escalated point with regulation. The very thing that they may need is that self-regulating break to reset.
Right.
And so I think that it is something that we need to know about specific instances so that we can have those conversations.
Is it possible to just go out and have your principals reiterate, just to make sure this is actually, or just send an email?
Yes, and I found that as a principal myself, sometimes if we're only sending the, hey everybody, don't let kids go get a drink of water in the last 2 minutes of class. If we send that email out to just the whole blanket staff, it's less precise than if we know the individual circumstance, so that we can have that individual conversation. I think doing both is important, because then it's not just the message to everybody where some people might be wondering, did I do something wrong when they didn't? But the people that maybe have done it are kind of escaping that piece.
That the parents who have experienced this would like it done a little bit more, in an affirmative way. And is there a way to actually have it where you send it out and you ask, this is not really an option that's ideal. This is not a best practice. Here are 5, 7, 10 more, things, alternate things that you can do instead of doing that. Is it just kind of like an FYI?
I think.
Is that possible?
Well, yeah, I mean,
anything is feasible, and what I'd want to do is have additional conversation with our executive directors about what is the best way of doing so in a productive way that's capacity building for staff and understanding building for staff, because I think that sometimes if there's a policy without fully explaining the why, that's where you end up with lack of compliance. And if we have a learning opportunity as well.
I'd just suggest a quick item at a principal meeting, just as a reminder about that. I don't think you need a whole lot of documentation on it, just a quick reminder there.
Right, I agree, and all I'm saying is that this was new to me at the table, and I want to make sure that it's dealt with comprehensively and fairly, because you're right. Same as group punishment. That's something we made as a reminder at our principal meetings, and for the most part it stopped. We may have an example in which it didn't, and we're making sure that we're following up on that.
I'd actually like to push back a little bit on that, though. I think this isn't something that we can just do a reminder on. These are commitments that districts around the country are taking, and we need to do a better job, because if we believe that this is not something that should be done, then we need to put a stake in the ground. We do this in policy all the time. We decide what we care about, and we measure it, and we monitor it, and we make sure it's not happening. Can you just write it in policy and assure that it's happening? No, of course, because policy doesn't mean equal compliance. You have to put support systems in place. So I think we have a lot of work to do. I think we've done a lot of good work. You guys did a great job updating the policy in 2017, but it does concern me moving into the compliance, not with food service, because Lynette, your whole staff is amazing. I already sing my praises to you all the time. But in terms of the other pieces, the objectives that we are by law supposed to lay out and illustrate if we are meeting those objectives or not, personally at this point I'm not seeing it. And again, that goes to health education, physical education, recess, staff wellness needs to be in here. We can do a better job with this, and I think this is an opportunity that we can really build on. So I know we'll talk more about this, but I feel really positive about it because I think there's some really great opportunity.
And I think the opportunity for us to evaluate deeply where we're at the end of the year and really give greater consideration to how did this serve us, what areas did it serve us well, what areas are we able to shore up with more effort and more connection of what we're doing. Those are important elements. So that's part of the reason why we're asking is that it be considered for part of the strategic planning in the coming year. I would also ask, though, that we have to consider as we're asking the board what place this holds within the scope of additional work. How much effort do you want put towards this? And is this a big rock of the district? Is it a medium-sized rock of the district as far as effort? I think it's an important piece, and I also think that there are other important pieces that we're working on. So as the district works with us on putting together our strategic plan and our strategic priorities for the coming year, I'd ask that we reflect and that you give us your consensus opinion on how that folds in. I do strongly believe, though, that wellness is integral to educating the whole child.
Do you want that right now? Do you want our commitment right now? Because I'll tell you that there isn't a rock big enough for me when it comes to this type of, I guess, focus, commitment. The rock is really big. I feel like the more robust policies and practices we have with this, we have to know that our discipline systems will only be helped. Student achievement will go up. All of the things that we need to be focusing on. I feel like this should actually be one of our biggest priorities above most things. Because I think, what do we do when we leave here, right? We go and when you leave work, you go work out. A lot of people take a walk. They do some meditation. They do some yoga. They listen to music. They go hang out with friends. It's literally something that all of us in this room do. And so I feel like we have to remind a lot of people, especially students, they're not thinking about this. We have to do it to some degree. We have to do it for them. So I personally would love to see this as, if not the top priority.
You want this as the top priority over
I'm just
literacy
speaking for
and math,
myself. I just feel like there's not enough emphasis on this at all. And I'm really happy we're talking about it and we're having the conversation. But when we're still, when we're doing some of the things that we're doing in the district and we're not even measuring what we're doing on wellness, that tells me that it's not a priority. So it needs to be as important as possible in everyone's minds, because I think everything else will fall in place afterwards. So me personally, I would like the rock to be huge on this.
So what specifically do you mean when you say the rock should be huge?
Well, he asked, how big of a rock do you want this to be? And I'm asking it to be a really big rock.
Right, but I'm asking in relation to the other rocks that we have, what you mean. Do you want us to, in order to grow a rock, you have to make other rocks smaller. So I'm asking, I just need to know,
I would ask.
More programs? Do we need?
No,
more
I think
rules?
I
Do
think we need to.
more-
I think you need to do some research and see the school districts that are doing this and really committed to it, and the reasons why, and they're out there. That's what I've spent a lot of the weekend looking at, and I think we need. And you would definitely know this because this is your wheelhouse. This is what you do. And I think that we need to, first of all agree that wellness is so necessary right now with kids and what they're dealing with in their lives. Secondary trauma with staff of what they're dealing with from being in the schools sometimes. I think if we don't even agree that that's really a huge priority, I'm not hearing that even from people right now. I think that should be something we have to
I mean, I understand what you're saying, and a lot of what you're saying, some of that is already being done. So what else are you asking to be done in addition to what's already being done in terms of mindfulness practices, care for the caregiver, for our staff, trauma-informed care? You know, there's a lot of things. I mean, recess, and I don't know. I mean, I'd be interested to know, because we talked about the recess thing many years ago and said that was not, an option of taking that away.
Well, I mean,
So
if we're not even measuring that, though, how do we know that that's being taken away? I mean, we know we're not measuring this, right? That's
who
been
takes recess away?
Right. We're not measuring the wellness programs in policy and practices right now in the classrooms anyway. So how would you know it's not being taken away?
So we just started with the implementation this fall of the plans, and this is a preliminary measure, and then we're proposing that we do a deeper measure of how the implementation went at the beginning of the year. I know Mr. Becker had his hand up for a minute, but I do want to address what I meant related to like the big rock within a strategic plan after Mr. Becker's allowed his question. I'm sorry.
Okay, so several years ago, and I'm not sure if I was on or not. When you say several years, that could have been the time I was on, or it could have been the in between time. But it sounds like years ago we said, and this is why I keep coming back to this idea of if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. So there's probably going to be very little that I suggest that doesn't come along with a policy anymore. It doesn't have to be a long policy, but it sounds like years ago we said that taking recess away isn't an option for discipline. I remember earlier this year some discussion about taking recess away isn't an option. And it still happens sometimes. I remember a discussion about group punishments and consequences, being told it's not an option. I believe that it was taken seriously by those that I talked to, and I believe it was stated at a principal meeting to not do that. Absolutely. I know it has happened, probably not checking with the principal, but it happens. So there's a difference between, right, if there is someone who thinks it's fine to take away recess or to do a group consequences, and it's a best practice guideline, then that's not that serious of a level compared to you violated a district policy on purpose. Now, I do think that there has to be a bit of a room for a common sense thing, right? If a kid is running out on the playground and hurting people left and right, it doesn't, maybe your recess, you still need the break and you still should have some outdoor time, but it might not be your first choice of time or place for it. I get that. I'm not, right? The point is that people need, taking away the break time could be the thing that's making the behavior worse. But I don't think without a policy it won't happen, because we've had these best practice communications, and it's just a big place, and things get missed without the principal's awareness sometimes. And so I think that does need to be in policy. I don't think it needs to be a policy statement that's a very long thing with a lot of committee work and complicated. I think it can be ready, and maybe I'll take a first draft of it. It can be very short and sweet and to the point. And the group consequences, I think that covers. It often involves recess, but it's not necessarily. So that kind of covers some of this, but expands beyond it. I think we're having, what I see, and I voted against at least one of the rounds of the district wellness policy very early on when we first had to have one. And part of my, and everyone here is doing a great job with it. Our food service is excellent. I'm very happy with what we've been doing, but unfortunately the direction, the federal direction is a hyper detailed approach about about mathematical formulas for what makes a snack an okay thing to eat, but then because it doesn't really make sense, there's about a dozen exceptions. Well, an egg doesn't count. Well, okay, but I thought that amount of grams of whatever was bad. Well, yeah, but it's an egg. I mean, there's a lot of exceptions. So it's really I think it's a very political, thing. It's weird. I mean, if you look at the science about, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but G2 is okay, but Gatorade isn't. Is that right? Okay, so, yes, G2.
It has to do with added sugar.
Yeah.
Right, but G2 makes the cut, right? Yeah. Okay, so.
It's not a perfect formula.
No, it's
not.
I mean, no, and I mean, right, and then you have the whole thing about, is diet stuff worse for you than the sugar? I think most people in the know would probably say just take the sugar and don't drink too much of it. But I'm much more interested. I am not that concerned really with yes, do what we have to do to not, get in trouble, but I hope we don't have to really ban birthday treats and this kind of thing that are not, directly supplied by the school. I think without, so I agree with Rhonda about the recess thing. I think we just need to put it down in writing, so if it happens going forward, now you violated a district policy, now we have a problem if it happens.
Can I add something to you? I just want to go back to, Brenda, what you had said as well. Moving our wellness policy in this direction does not mean it's necessarily doing something new. It's doing it in a more coordinated way. So the components of this include, and I'm going to read them out loud so everybody understands that it's not just recess. Physical education and physical activity, nutrition, environment, and services, food service, health education, social and emotional school climate, physical environment, so the buildings, the air that the kids breathe, having safe places to sit and learn, health services, counseling and social services, employee wellness, community involvement and family engagement. We're doing a lot of these things already. Michelle, you and I have talked about this in length. The difference is, what I'm asking is for us to shift our lens and not see it as something different, but as being more coordinated, so that our policy, our practice, and our systems work in conjunction so that they are directly connected to academic achievement. Because when we know we get these systems and organized and we build off on them and we commit to it, our kids are going to be more academically successful. So it's not a new rock.
It's not something new, but it's basically coming back to it and saying, like, we're doing all these things. How do we take a step back and make sure that everything's speaking to each other? Like, I was talking to Jean when we were talking about employee wellness, and I was like, Jean, this is amazing. Employee wellness is directly connected to student wellness. When employees are well, kids are well. So I think for me, it's just a shift in making sure that this has to be a key priority, because when we do this well, our kids will learn and they will be academically successful more than what they have already been. So.
Go ahead.
This isn't an either-or, literacy, math, or this. I agree exactly what you're saying there. And I'm sorry, but I don't recall your name, but the speaker who was up earlier,
Crystal,
when she referenced Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the very, very basic foundational level, that's what we're talking about here. And it's not an either-or. I mean, I guess it's just recognizing that all of these things, health, mental health, physical health, all those things have to happen first before you can get to the next steps up there. So I don't think we're talking about something that should be controversial here.
No, and we, go ahead.
If I could, as I look to our current reality around our strategic framework, within our framework, we talk about an educational learning system. Within that framework, right now, at this moment, we talk about positive culture, we talk about engagement, all aligned with the district priorities. It's very easy to be more intentional. And I believe that once your group assembles and you start looking at these key components and you even compare it into this document, it'll be very easy to identify specific strategies within this framework already in place that will, and then to Rhonda's point about measuring, I think it will align beautifully. It's part of an educational learning system. There's already components within this framework around culture and climate, around evidence-based best practices with family and community engagement, and systemic implementation. So I think all the pieces are there as well. So it's a question of alignment, and so I think we can
and I agree.
do that
And
pretty
when I was asking the question, I wasn't
handily.
saying, I didn't mean to, and that's why I was asking to come back to it. I wasn't meaning to phrase it as a either or. It's a, how can we make sure that it's interwoven and braided with what we're already doing so that they're complementary of each other and not something new. I do think it's important for us as a team working together from continuous improvement and student services and with the board to have really clear alignment of what are the big things upon which you want us to be working on. We serve you as representatives of the community, and we want to make sure that we're addressing the areas with great depth that we're directed towards, and that we're working together within our strategic plan. So really, I'm asking that it be considered as part of our strategic planning work, and just thinking about how it weaves within is something that I want to make sure that we're clear on. And Christina, your mentioning of social emotional learning and self-regulation and mental health, and that broader definition of wellness is really very fitting with our work around engagement and academic excellence in many other areas, including thriving workforce. So it fits well. I'm just asking that we think about how it's clearly articulated within the plan. Sure.
Thank you.
And can you send an email out and remind people?
To do what?
Yeah, about with recess. I just really want that to happen. Or somehow, however you can get that out
I will find a way
there.
of making sure that it's very clearly communicated within the week.
Thank you.
Sure.
Then is that, so when I just want to ask, and maybe, so if a clear communication is going out, then it's not a policy yet, but I'm still going to plan to propose one, but then is it then, I would assume that then if someone elects to do it anyways with the foreknowledge, then that is direct insubordination at that point?
Yes.
Okay.
It would, and we also want to make sure that we're careful enough about the way we define it. Let's just give a horrible example and say a fifth grader brings a gun to school and we find it just before recess, we wouldn't in that circumstance have the student, in the event of a deep investigation, have that student then go out to recess. We would have to consider what are we doing in that situation. So I don't mean to throw out an extreme.
Sure, yeah.
Or Ed's example of a student is getting into multiple fights on the playground or something of that nature. There might be another opportunity for self-regulation that doesn't involve immediately going out with their peers for that particular event. But I think excluding kids from recess is something that we really need to, I'm getting an applause, something that we need to make sure we're clearly communicating on. Thank you.
All right, and then there's been a request to take a break, so we'll do that.
You don't have recess data?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
Well, because they're not measured.
No.
Are you going home?
We measure this, but we don't measure that. Wow.
Sure. Two Rice Krispie bars, actually, this thing is giant.
Anyway.
Well, that's.
We'll probably talk more about that. We have a meeting on the 25th with.
So I make, because I make them made with butter. So
Exactly, you can tell they taste like chemicals.
With the butter?
No, I just think.
well, if I make them and make them with butter, they're like, and then I eat the whole pan in about 2 days,
Yeah.
maybe a day and a half.
Are we gonna get back to this? Yeah, we probably should get going.
All right.
What are we missing here? When you adjourn tonight,
What do you?
Vicki gave me money out of the for the vending machine. I'll split them with you.
Oh, peanuts?
Yeah.
All right, we'll get back to our agenda. And we have one, or actually, a few more things on superintendent's update.
No, I'm not allergic.
She needs to know
Peanut
that
oil.
he's left.
Sorry, I would have done something to share now.
Thank you, Brenda. I do have a very important success story that I want to share with our community and with our board tonight and anyone else who is listening. The district has been working very tirelessly on a number of very strategic, important areas, and one of those obviously is to improve our graduation rates. Earlier this month, I think, or maybe late in January, we learned that the district was named as an AP District Honor Roll recipient for increasing the percentage of students who are involved in taking AP courses and also participation in terms of success of a 3 or higher. In addition to that, obviously, we learned in November that the district's trajectory on the state assessment was improving as well, and more recently learned I want to talk a little bit about graduation rates. One of the important indicators for us in improving graduation rates is really our efforts around ensuring that children are engaging in college credits and improving that percentage in our college credits. So in this document I'm going to share with you that will be going public here in the next day or so, it talks about the percentage of graduates from the Green Bay area public schools who have college credits. In 2014, we had 49% of our students engaging in and taking college credit courses. In 2018, we had almost 67.5% of our students. So we're seeing some significant increases. In 2014, we had 70 students engaged. College credits earned were 7,389. And then in 2018, 12,832. So some significant gains in those efforts. But our teachers and our staff and our administrators and our schools and our community partners in our community have really worked hard collectively around the importance of ensuring that every child has what they need for success to graduate college, career, and community ready and be able to choose a 2-year or 4-year pathway or the military or a career. And one of the things that I'm very pleased to share with, and we're not quite where we need or want to be, but we saw once again improvement in our graduation rates overall. The district now is at 85.8%. In 2013, we were at 81.3%, and it is the collective whole of so many people working tirelessly. I referenced the educational learning system that we have in place. That's a very important place because it talks about the systems interventions that are going on, multi-level systems of support and behavior and academics, an ensured and guaranteed universal curriculum, which I think impacts students who are very mobile. And no matter where they go to school across the district, that matters. We also saw a very targeted laser-like focus that we've had for many years, but particularly these last several years, on issues of gap closing and disproportionality that a lot of interventions have been put into place, and we're very pleased to share that we have seen increases, significant increases over the last 5 years. As the students that we serve are Native American students in that category. 2013, it was 53.4%. And in 2018, 70.7, so an increase of 17.3%. We have areas that we continue to work on. Students in the category and graduating in our category called Black. It was 2013, 56.6. 2018, 76.9, an increase of 20.3%. And another double-digit gain was with our English language learners. But we are seeing overall really important gains. And I know that somebody said, well, the state's gone up as well. Yes, the state would, because we're one of the largest contributors to the state group. But it is really the collective effort on the part of our educators and people working tirelessly to ensure that we have guaranteed and viable curriculum for each child, that they can have access and opportunity to get there, and obviously our community partners as well supporting us. Efforts in our community that our students participate in, Be Great Graduate, Boys and Girls Club, the mentoring program with Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Scholarships, Inc., and our young scholars coming through with a college mindset, Achieve Brown County now with Graduation 2.0, so significant efforts in our community all around the issue of ensuring that every child, regardless of their life circumstance, has success for all. So it is important to thank our teachers and our students and our families and our community and our administrators who have really ensured this. And you know, I think we had a great conversation with our local media about this effort. And you know, there are things also that we may or may not know the impact of, but mobility plays a factor in our work. And even a number of years ago, just a team that included at that time board member Celestine Jeffries provided transportation. So the stability of our students, if you look at the document, you can see that our graduation rate overall for those students who started as freshmen and stayed 4 years in the schools and were supported in that journey has increased as well, and we're sitting at 96.7% for those students in that cohort rate. So there's a lot of contributors. AVID, Advancement via Individual Determination, which is a program in both our middle and high schools, is another that comes to mind. But it is truly the collective, focused, targeted efforts to reduce any disproportionality amongst our students in our graduation rates and close gaps. It really has been important, and it is very reflective, I think, in our latest data as well, in our 5-year data. So I believe that we are on the right trajectory. We're not where we need it to be yet, but we're keeping to move in the right direction. So I just share that out there. And then this document, Lori, will go live.
So that's going to be up on the website by Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay. So that the whole community can see the strategic framework, the educational learning system, putting equity at the center of our work,
and the 5-year goals for the district in those areas as well. All right.
We still have more.
And then the next item is focus in on
Security drills.
school security drills, and I know that Vicki was going to do that presentation. I think she stepped out to talk to Samantha a little bit. So maybe we could flip that if we could. Do you need a motion for that? Can we
I'll move to
reverse them?
rearrange the agenda to.
We'll go to benefit next.
We'll go to benefit next, and then we'll come back to the school security drills.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you, and Jean will join us. Thank you for that.
So I thought it would be good to just recap some of the things that we've done in connecting with our employees since we last spoke about the benefits. We held 3 sessions to get feedback from our employees.
Jean, can you turn the microphone toward you more? Thanks.
We had 3 sessions with our employees, and 118 people attended that. We then put together, with the help of IT, one of our tech integrators, Amy, a virtual meeting, which went through via a slide and then a voiceover, the same information that was shared at the meetings. With the help of Lori's department and Lily, we created a question and answer that was shared out with all employees, both in the staff scoop last week, and then also it was shared via an email to employees so that they could give feedback to the board and then ask questions. The board also asked questions, which was provided, the responses were provided to you. And then we also met with the GBEA and got some information and some questions from them. One of the things that was asked of us that we did do and will be reviewing is we were asked if there would be any changes that could be made if we did a different maximum out of pocket and also a different copay. Our copay is a 90/10. We were asked to price out what a copay of $85.15 would be, as well as changing the out-of-pocket max from the recommended $2,000 to $4,000 to $1,500 to $3,000 to just reduce it a little bit so it wasn't doubled. So M3 has brought back what they feel would be the structure for that. We haven't reviewed it with everybody, but we will review it with the GBA and with our administration to see if that might be any changes in that might be viable. We're going to continue to take questions from employees and get feedback, and there will be more in the staff scoop, so people will continue to be able to do that, and we'll get the answers and the feedback to you. I would say that one thing that is positive from this is it afforded us the opportunity to educate people quite a bit about insurance. And one of the things that we agreed upon when we met with the GBA, and Michelle was there, is that we really have to do a better job of making sure people understand insurance and how they can save money. Because when, for example, when they utilize our health and wellness clinic, or they use, we're opening the Bellin clinics, when they use some of the cost-saving measures that we have in place, not only does the district save money, but they save money, because many of these things don't even touch their co-pays, their out-of-pocket max. It's above that. So we will definitely work towards that effort to be have a more education focus, which makes sense because that's what we do. We don't have any new recommendations for you this evening, but I would take any questions that you might have. So if I don't have the answers tonight, I'll write them down and get them back to you. Yes.
You said 118 people?
Actually came, yes.
That's at the in-person meeting?
Mhm.
Do you have
No.
a sense of how many people have watched the, thank you.
Yes, I think that we had about, I don't know if they watched it, but I think we had over 700 people open up the memo. Yeah.
That's great.
You can't really tell if they sat through the whole thing, but I would presume that even if 75% actually did, that was good.
And of people who have submitted feedback on the survey, do you have a count on how many
How many questions?
surveys? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We had, I think about, if I counted the questions that were provided to people back in the staff scoop, I think there was like over 30 questions, but we're not through them all yet. And I would say there's probably going to be another 25 to 30 questions.
What do you mean by survey?
Well, they do the online feedback form.
That form, that Google form.
It's a form online, but it's not a survey that you're asking people questions. It's asking for you. It's for people to ask you
Q&A.
questions.
Yes,
It's a
sorry.
Q&A.
Right.
I think that's what.
Survey implies that it's something that
Out.
people go out and participate
External,
in.
yeah.
And it was,
Yeah.
I saw confused faces out there,
No,
so I
that's
thought I'd
okay.
clarify.
Thank you, Katie.
It wasn't
I
just
appreciate
me.
you. I was going to ask another question. Now I can't remember what it was.
Sorry.
But I do want to share with you that I have personally met with and spoke with or emailed with about 45 individuals as well. And so I have directed them to the feedback.
Google form.
And yep, to the Google form and to you. And I wanted to thank you because I know I sent you like 18 questions the other day, Jean, and you responded, and I appreciated that. But those were definitely the sort of overarching themes that I was receiving from folks.
And I would say that if you looked at some of the other questions that we received, they were of a similar theme. I mean, nobody wants to increase the cost of health care. It is really related to the deficit that we're facing, which John Kasha estimates between the 4 and 6 million. We also want to make sure that the plan is competitive, so that we're offering a plan that, that doesn't pull people away from the district. And I still think with these changes, we will still have a plan that's quite good, probably better than most. And I did challenge some folks to say, if you do find a better plan anywhere, please bring it to me. I'd love to see it. I'd love to, find out more about it. And I haven't had anybody send me anything. Because I do think our plan is still very, very good. There were some suggestions about, well, could we, have a narrow panel, but, for a district of our size, some of those changes might be beneficial to one person, but overall, I don't think they'd be beneficial to most.
I do appreciate you exploring the maximum out-of-pocket.
Yeah, I think there might be
options. I
some,
think that's-
middle ground in that, and I want to thank members of the GBA for meeting with us and offering that as an option, because I think there could be some potential there. Yeah. Yes.
So I'm not really interested in necessarily conceding that we don't have alternatives. As far as making up the differential, in one of the questions that was asked about the fund balance, can you answer that at all?
It depends. I can answer.
Okay.
I think John has explained the fund balance to us several times.
But what I guess specifically, it states that 0.7% is, a little over $2 million. And it's recommended that we stay around 15%. So we have an overage, right? So that's $2 million right there. So when we're looking at, maybe looking at alternatives, I know you said you'd gone through some other things, but am I reading it correctly that there's an overage of fund balance for $2 million?
In the memo that John sent, and I have it in front of me, February 1st, we have a 15.7% fund balance, which is slightly above the board policy of 15%. So it's 7% high. I don't know how much that translates into actual dollars.
A little over
Did he
$2
put that in
million.
there? Pardon? 2
million.
million.
If I could, I think it's really important for John to speak to this. A number of years ago, we went into the fund balance. It did affect our rating. I think it's a very important issue that I think the board needs more explanation, and I don't want to misspeak. So you ask a very important question that deserves an answer from someone who can
Right.
speak to it.
And he'll be back on Monday.
Yeah.
But there will be people watching this that are interested in this particular piece of it. So going into the fund balance wouldn't necessarily mean the overage. It's anything we go into beyond what we're recommending we have in policy. Right?
Right.
Because right now it says we have an overage.
We have an overage at this moment in time. Typically, if we choose to dip into the fund balance, it's for a one-time expense. It's not a sustainable expense.
So if you dip into it this year to pay the $5 million increase to health insurance if nothing changes, it'll pay for it this year, but next year, the cost of the health care will still be there. We will still likely be 5 million short, plus the cost of health care will go up. It never goes down, it always goes up. And you'll be now back where you are, or perhaps worse.
Well, but I'm also hopeful at that point we would have maybe looked into other ways that we could have come up with, because you have
savings.
Right now you have, it says that you specifically look to close the deficit, program efficiencies, contracted services, travel. There are some other things I think we could maybe take a look at as well. State funding could look a certain way compared to what it's been looking like in the past. I'm hoping that we're also looking at not just balancing the budget through this mechanism. I think that from what I've been hearing, and I've been talking with a lot of people as well, I think we underestimate the hit that people are gonna take morale-wise. Because the questions, and I attended one of the meetings as well, and I took down all the questions, and the questions, concerns were, how did we get to this point? Why are we here? Why are we literally going into our teachers and support staff to balance the budget, essentially? It's a fair question, and I'm hoping that we actually really and truly explore that versus trying to say, well, it's insurance. But there are people out there that they're actively looking to leave the district right now because they already believe this is done and it's a done deal. They don't really believe anything's gonna come of it. They feel that, why are we being considered as far as to balance this budget? Why are we actually being asked to give more again? What are we getting from this? What are we actively doing at this point to attract and retain a thriving teacher workforce? Because I'm concerned that something that's historically known for teachers to have, it's something that keeps, when the work is really hard and they're stressed and they're struggling, this is one thing that they have always had. And so, and this is what I'm not a teacher, I'm not a support staff member, but I'm just expressing what I've been hearing. Because my phone's been ringing off the hook since this came out. And the questions are, and the question for me specifically does remain, what are we doing specifically to attract and retain teaching staff, support staff? Because I think that's something we need to be thinking about as well.
Attracting, retaining staff, teachers and support staff is very important. And we do retain many of our teachers, and we still have a fair number of people who apply for our jobs. We're still a district that I think people want to work at. And our benefits, even with these changes, will still be excellent benefits.
Well, I would have to say though, Jean, I'm gonna interrupt you because I have heard over and over again from people that we are attracting, retaining, but this hasn't gone through yet.
Right.
And I continue to hear that people are concerned and that why would I go to Green Bay if I don't have this?
Because it's still the best health plan around. It is. We don't lose people because they're getting a better set of health care benefits in other districts. We don't typically lose them because they're getting a lot more money in other districts. They may get a slightly higher salary. They may get a promotion. We lose people for promotional opportunities. We're a very excellent training ground for people to move on to leadership positions in other districts. When we lose people, they may find just a better match somewhere else. They also find closer to home. That's a major issue. And sometimes we hire people who don't have the experience that they feel that they need to have to work in districts of our size and complexity. But I don't ever hear that they're getting a more rich healthcare plan or a more rich dental plan when they leave.
Well, I think I would say this though. I think what I'm hearing people tell me is that they're being asked to pay more. You know, it reminds me of when you hear certain lawmakers say, don't you want a choice with your health insurance? Mm-hmm. It's like, actually, I need to afford my health insurance before I have a choice. You know, it's kind of a broad question. Really, at the end of the day, they want to be able to afford it. They want to be able to make the deductibles work for their family. That's their interest. That's their concern. It's not necessarily that, you know, they want to be able to pay for it in the first place. And so that is the concern that I'm hearing the most.
You know, I found a couple of things that I learned as I looked at other school districts and talked to some others. One thing we could do, which I'm not advocating, but many districts have stopped paying health insurance for part-time employees. We attract a number of part-time employees, which are really important for our district. But we could say we wouldn't offer it to part-time employees. We could raise the threshold to 30 hours a week or more, and that would save a great deal of money. But some people come here to work a part-time job, which fits their lifestyle, just so they can get insurance, because they aren't going to go to the neighbors and get that. The other thing is you could say, well, you can't go to just any doctor. You've got to select one of the 3 healthcare providers. We had that at one time. I mentioned at one of the forums, people aren't real interested in that. That could save money. We could reduce some of the other benefits within the plan that would pay less for certain things. That would save money. Some places do that. Those are, you know, we could look inside the plan to save money as well. But that, I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think that the plan needs to be as comprehensive as it is.
And the increases that we're talking about, if I have this correct, the increases we're talking about recoup 1.5 million of the 5 million deficit.
Yes.
And the deficit is our healthcare deficit. It's not a
We have
district-wide, it's not a district deficit. It's specifically related to the fact that our usage and healthcare costs are increasing, and we would have to pay 5 million more next year. So what we're proposing is recouping 1.5
yes,
million
and then
of
we
that.
would still fund it.
And then we would still have to cut in other places to be able to fund the other 3.5 million of that, of the healthcare costs.
Well, we plan to fund 3.5 million.
We are funding.
We will.
Right.
In addition, we will continue to fund 3.5 million of that.
But that represents a cut somewhere else for us to be able to fund that?
That is what I think John is saying.
Yeah, that's
Well,
absolutely.
It might. I mean, it likely will represent some amount of cuts, but the problem is, and I'm not saying that we're not doing the best we can to project when some of the pieces aren't known yet, but we have to decide in March for it to be timely for a benefits decision. Right. Even though the actual budget year is July 1, for us, is July 1 through June 30th. And even though a state budget will be passed probably late this year, sometime this year, probably, hopefully. So, but that budget, again, I would, it seems like, before where you might have a governor and legislative budget proposals that weren't too far apart and were for flat, maybe not even cost of living increases, I think you'll have something different. So some of this is an educated guess. Will the you know, there are things that you can't you can't, we have a couple of unique elements that may, depending how well we make people aware of them and use it, don't really exist in the actuarial model that could help us do better than the actuarial model. Which, and I'm big on actuarial models, but it's being in a position to have your own clinic, which costs you the same whether, you know, X number of people use it or 2X number of people use it because it's staffed and is not fully used. That's one of those factors that could cause us to do better than the actuarial model. Plus, it's likely that we'll see probably see some good improvement on per student revenue, but perhaps offset by students out exceeding students in. So there are a lot of unknowns here. So it's not like we would make a decision now about fund balances. Fund balance is what happens at the end of the year. There's often some unspent funds and so forth. So, so has there been getting to my question, has there been an official meet and confer about this?
I would say that, I'm not sure that we posted it as such, but
we've had
meetings with the GBA.
Yeah.
Okay, what about other units?
They were invited to attend the other open meetings.
Okay, but an open meeting is, a meet and confer is different than, right, these meetings are, although questions were solicited, and I appreciate that, that has a whole different vibe to it, right? You're going to, if you go to the informational meeting, you're going to hear what's going to happen, and I think many people do feel that it's a done deal already, and people have been getting comments about that. A meet and confer implies that even though this is no longer a subject of collective bargaining, that there will be interchange of ideas, and that someone might have a proposal that would actually be taken seriously, and it sounds like there was one.
It was GBA, and that is they represent the paraprofessionals as well. We didn't have a separate meeting just with the AFSCME leaders, but many of them attended, I think, the second meeting that we had. But I certainly could set up a separate meeting with the AFSCME leaders.
I think that would be good to have we have the meet and confer procedure to make it something, it was we passed that in recognition of the fact that although the state has curtailed bargaining over working conditions, that we weren't going to curtail two-way discussion about working conditions and benefits.
And we've had them, we have monthly meetings with all of the units, not so much the trades, it's a small group, but with the AFSCME unit, we meet with the.
We were snowed out this past Tuesday.
Right, but then they attended one of the three meetings.
Right.
I called Karen up and told her. But we can certainly offer that to Karen. I'm sure she'll be able to meet with us. She's very, very willing.
And then, do we get when we have these questions, like you talked about this in-between model, this should be a matter for M3 of just pushing a few buttons and an answer.
Yeah, they got it from
coming
me
out,
within, I think I asked for it, let's track the days, Thursday evening, and I had it this morning.
Okay, that's not too bad, I guess. So you're gonna email that out to us?
Yes, I can send it out. Yeah.
Because that's important. That was something I was gonna start thinking about. I think the idea of something in between the current administrative proposal and what we have now might be worth working towards. That said, I would not be able to say today that I would be voting yes on any increase in benefit costs, but I'm glad to see more choices and options are a good thing. I too would not want to limit the network or doctor choices to as a solution. I don't see that as a solution.
Laura, did you have a while ago? Michelle?
As we have really grappled with this to try to find the financial pieces and picture, and I wish I had a crystal ball, Andrew, because I'm very hopeful about the state budget with others. At the same time, I also am fully aware that we need to do some things right now to address it, and I, based on the forecast. And I think one of the pieces that we've talked very seriously about, is that 5 million seems to be a pretty good sized number. And so the goal, and we've talked about this so many times, about the impact on someone and the deductible and out of pocket. So it isn't without us being insensitive to others, but how do we do that collectively? Because we're also looking at all of the items on the list that we put, including, we talked about staffing and attrition and pieces, and since I've been afforded the opportunity to serve in this district, we've never had to do any layoffs, and those are the pieces as we start to look, from a capacity perspective. One of the things that we do know is that over these last several years, we've been afforded the opportunity to meet the needs of our children by adding additional staff without providing the financial resource from the state to address that. Somebody said, well, there's a lot of referendums that passed. Yep, there are. There's a lot of need out there that keeps telling me there are great needs across our schools, across the state. And so grappling with these issues, I think John Akasha, if he were here, would tell you, because our declining enrollment is such, and it's not open enrollment, it literally is, the children in our neighborhoods aren't there right now. That's what's really impacting what we're talking about here, in addition to the 5 million in increase in insurance, and so it's really balancing, trying to figure out what will sustain us today over time. And it's really intended to be one small, one piece of the whole moving us forward. Do we continue to look for places, and we spent how many hours today looking and drilling deeper? We want to be able to address this, and again, I wish we had the crystal ball. I'd like to know what they're gonna help us out with. In the meantime, though, we can't rely on that, and that's really our biggest challenge, is how do we have that conversation with our community, school community. And we did have a great meeting with the GBA. It was a very good, insightful group of thoughtful folks that were coming up with some different ideas, which I thought was really helpful. But we have more work to do, and we can go back and dive deeper into our own pieces, and really working to address it. But I think that healthcare, and we know that there are parts of our own healthcare right now for some of our folks that are really, it's an increasing cost for retirees 65 and over that we carry on our policies and things like that. So there's opportunity to keep looking and keep open these conversations, but the intention was to try to figure out how to address this deficit without causing people great anguish, and because we care.
I'll just quickly go. So what I'm hearing is healthcare costs are rising. We're skeptical of going into fund balance because we can't continue to do that. But if healthcare costs continue to rise, and our answer is to go into the employees' benefits, then are we going to continue? If healthcare costs are rising, then is our option going to continue to be going into the healthcare benefits? Because it's been stated that we can't continue to go into fund balance, But if healthcare costs are gonna continue to rise, this is our option today, why wouldn't it be our option next time?
It could be, but that's one of the things why we're trying to promote some of the wellness initiatives to get people to go to less expensive places for their care, like our clinic, Bellin clinics, and to treat things earlier so that you prevent things. But it could be an option to go deeper into healthcare. Other districts have done that. They've taken out the part-time employees. They just don't get it. They don't offer it. We haven't cut like some of the other districts have been forced to cut. This is the first time in 6 years or so that we've really looked at health insurance. We've more expanded it than increased the cost to the employees. But you could be facing that very thing. It is not an optimistic outlook at all.
Well, I would hope we would take a really serious look at priorities before we did something like that. Because removing people from the classroom, removing anything from the classroom, whether it's supporting the teachers and staff that are in there with our kids to, for their quality of life, which includes they have cancer, they have MS, they have something that's not something you can necessarily prevent because it just happens. I think if this makes me really nervous talking about that's where we're going, and that's where we would go again. I think we have to really think about what our priorities are, and does it include the classroom?
Yeah, I don't disagree. And even if we do reduce the cost of, we have to make these changes, it will not, it's not as if we can just say, well, then we're all fine. We are still going to have to make reductions in our budget because, as John told you, this is just one piece of it. And it will help, but it will not be the entire solution.
But it is interesting how health insurance is holding us all hostage, right? I don't believe that that's actually, I can't believe we're actually allowing that. There's a lot of really smart people in this district that we're actually allowing healthcare to hold us hostage. I mean, that's the headline, right? That's what's happening right now.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
We are, because of healthcare costs, we are having to go into the people that are on the ground with our students to balance that. So, I mean, in a million years, that's never been a good idea. Right? And thanks to Act 10, they can't even fight for it. So it's up to us sitting here to do that. And I think, I don't know if we're all just kind of desensitized or what, but
it is a difficult thing. It's a difficult thing to ask you to vote for. It's very difficult. I mean, ultimately, you have to make a decision that, by virtue of your seat on the board, you have to make. It's not easy, and but we want to bring you a balanced budget. And the facts are that the cost has gone up, and there aren't a lot of ways to shift it. We will still be shifting other things.
well, I know for me personally, I want staff that feels valued. I want students to have staff that feels valued. That's a priority for me.
Difficult to argue with that.
Christina?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me and everyone sitting here, the human stories and the impact that I personally have heard from our staff is it's saddening isn't even descriptive because it doesn't clearly even itch how people are feeling. I talked to a staff person today. She has MS, and she said she'll reach her out-of-pocket max in the first month because it's $25,000 a year or a month for her medical prescriptions. She said she was thinking about leaving the district, going part-time, that she basically because of her husband's job, but people are asking these questions. Am I going to stay here? I mean, I've had teachers say, I don't know if I'm going to stay here because I'm here because of the benefits. That's what they have said. I am here because of the benefits. They love teaching in this district. They know that this district has additional challenges, but they believe in it, and they're here because of the values that the district provides in their personal life, especially for those that have family members with existing conditions or if they themselves do. I talked to a para today who said that she was afraid that she was going to be able to pay her summer bills because of the gap in para pay because they don't get paid over the 12-month. And she said, I wish I would have known earlier, because then she could have saved over the school year to basically account for this period of time. I talked to another para who said he was pushing to have a surgery done, to have it done before the June 30th deadline, because he's afraid he's not going to be able to pay for it next year. So these are real concerns that people are grappling with, and I worry that we are, and I know no one's doing this intentionally, but it ends up being the lowest common denominator, where we say, well, the other districts are doing this, so that's okay for us. I don't have any interest in doing that. I don't think anyone does intentionally either, but I just want to be careful that we're really intentional, that we're not going in that direction. And then the other piece that I heard over and over again was, you have it here, Jean, and you answered it, and we've been talking about it, but what has the district looked at? The teachers want to be a part of that conversation. That's what I've heard over and over again. I've heard so many of them say, look, we want to pay our fair share. We want to have good benefits. We know that it's going up. We don't mind paying a little bit more, but feeling like this jump was significant, inequitable, and was going to really put people out, and they want to be a part of this conversation, Michelle, to you as well. A lot of them said to me, look, I want to be a problem solver. I can look to things in my building that we can save money. And I would like to see us try to buy some time to bring teachers into that conversation to help us problem solve of how we can do this collectively. Even if the costs have to go up for them a little bit, I think we can do a better job of meeting them halfway.
Andrew?
So, one point and then one more, technical question about this. I think, I think Christina brings up a good point with when we have staff looking at, the whole range of considerations in, am I coming to / staying in Green Bay? Am I looking elsewhere / choosing elsewhere? So our benefits certainly are something that is a major attractor, and it's important to have, because we know that in many buildings you may have a more challenging experience than you would have in a neighboring district, though it's not always, but often. So if you're looking at that and you're saying, you know what, this is a more challenging assignment, pay is similar between the two places, but these benefits make a big difference for my family. And of course we know that people are not educators for the money, even for the money with a good benefits package. That's not what it's all about. But when you're considering these things, I am concerned that if we go from having a clearly best health benefits package in the area to the best by a small margin, or tied with the best, or right up near the top, okay, then we still have the same challenges. So people are going to weigh those things a little bit differently now. So just being able to say that, although we had to make changes, we're still the most generous in the area. If the out-of-pocket is worse for the average staff member, that's going to be part of their consideration. It's not, staying number one by a hair does not just automatically mean that people won't make those changes. I am also really sensitive to the concern about a shock increase in you know, the shock of an out-of-pocket max increase, it sounds like maybe there's some movement towards a middle ground where that's less bad of a shock. But would people be able to look at that when they're making a flex account election? Is that July through June because of?
The flex account is July through June, but there are limits, IRS limits, so we can't increase the flex out of proportionately. It is set by the IRS. And
Right, but many people aren't taking the max though, right? What's the max?
27.
Yeah, I don't know, I really don't know how many
think it
people
was
take the
20.
max.
Mary, is it, what is it?
We allow $26.50 right now, but as of January 1, it went up to $2,700. We'll look at that for open enrollment.
If it goes up.
But that's the IRS maximum, is 2,700?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we follow that, but I don't really know how many people actually flex the max. I would think that with this change, people would look at that, but for those people that reach it they probably already flexing. There's some people that aren't flexing that maybe could take advantage of that then.
Right, so certainly obviously if a person's already, if you're flexing the max, then you're already, well, why would you ever,
if you're flexing the max, you already think you're gonna be there. I mean, you
yeah,
would
but,
never.
yeah, but isn't the max in excess of the out-of-pocket maximum? You can do some uncovered benefits, right?
Yes, you
Okay.
can, yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
There's at least there is I would hope we're promoting that, because that would be available immediately if you needed a surgery on July 2nd, as long as you had a position of record for the next.
Oh, yeah.
As long as you have a contract
As long as you
offer.
qualify, as long as you're on plan.
So you do. There is that. So I hope we're promoting that. I just want to make sure that we're not overplaying the fact that in the end, something might cost the average family $600, $700, $800 more a year, but still be $50 or $100 better than the neighbor district. That's still a difference that people are going to look
I
at.
see what you mean.
Thank you.
So next steps?
The next steps would be to continue to answer staff questions, to look at an alternative to that out-of-pocket and see if that would be something that would be a middle ground. I'd like John Kasha, when he's back on Monday, to look at that, put it through his financial lens.
Yeah,
and then continue to provide the feedback to the board that you received.
Yeah, I think that the piece of, I think we need to have that conversation around the fund balance, because if I recall right, we had a really rough financial concern when we had a number of claims come in from years earlier, and so we had to go into the fund balance quite over $2 million, if I'm not mistaken, or close to it. So I want to be mindful of that. I also know, though, that we will continue our internal conversations and our conversations with the GBA and make sure that we continue those discussions. The piece again goes back to, we will continue to look for other places. We have, and if we can come up with something in response to that's palatable, that, there is, the Rhonda, you brought up Act 10, and that was a very, 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 very difficult point in time. I feel that we've tried very hard as a district to keep our communication open with our staff, to make sure that we hear their voices. We've done labor management. We try to be very open. So, that's our intention. I know that other districts are not quite as interested in that, but it's been a real important priority for us. And we're not there yet, and it's certainly not a perfect system, but we continue to try to keep talking.
Can I say something about that, though? So if you go to 2010, 2019, and you look at the district budget, it's increased, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, where have we, if you weigh where we've increased spending, where has that been? So you can say, people can say that they feel really terrible about Act 10, but at the end of the day, we have increased spending somewhere that has allowed us to have to now today, 9 years later, go into teachers' pockets. How did we get there? Are we interested in that story?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
6 million in spec ed in the last year.
Just in 2 years.
Okay, but, okay.
Salary increases.
Salary increases.
Yeah.
But specifically, do we know that we've actually, because Act 10 happened, did we abandon teachers enough to now, today, be asking them to pay more? I just wonder about how we got here, and I think it would be interesting to look at what we've actually spent more money on, less money on in 9 years. I wasn't part of this board during that time, but I think it would be interesting to look at that. You know, has most of that, you know, we are all upset about Act 10, but did we actually then just say, you know what, we're just gonna continue to fund those classrooms and we're gonna make sure that they're taken care of? Was that the constant goal? Was that?
Maybe lessons there.
Right, is that something that's been happening? Because
I believe it is. We've tried to
but
provide
do
support.
we have this actually on paper so that we know? I mean, if now, I'm concerned that healthcare costs are gonna continue to rise. That's what we're talking about. Are we going to continue to operate in the same model that we have and to continue to go into the classroom to break that up?
Hey,
Sounds like we are.
I would offer that, again, one of the pieces of this story has to do with what goes on in Madison. And I know that we have done our best in terms of trying to provide programming and supports for students as evidenced in our graduation rates and improvements. Central registration is an area that we put into place to meet the needs of our diverse families when they come into the district. Being able to provide supports for families whose first language is not English has been a hugely underfunded area, 0.8 reimbursement, and we're upward of 4,500 students in that category. There are a lot of places we've invested and have seen success for students. I think that the problem continues to be the funding of public education has not kept up with inflation to begin with. And that's a reality, and that's what we've seen over time. The district immediately after Act 10 was in the hole. We used the opportunity, I won't say the word, we used what we were supposed to do based on what I understand was expected, and at the same time, we're still looking at a $9 million deficit in 2010.
Is supposed to do is less bad than the word you stopped yourself from using, but supposed to is still, that was right, I mean, supposed to do according to who though?
The Madison, the governor, required to do.
There were a couple, okay, fair point, yes, you're right, there were a couple pieces of Act 10 that were required pieces.
Required
My
pieces,
mistake.
that's what I
Okay.
yeah, that's what I
All right.
meant, Andrew. And so, in addition to that, after those requirements were addressed, there was still a big gap, and we've been pushing out ever since.
But I think what you're saying though, Michelle, is really important because I think for me, the truth is both of those things, right? To say like those investments that the district has decided to make over the past 9 years have benefited the district and our students. But I think at the same time, we also can look back and say, are there lessons that we can learn of ways that we can look forward in how we invest in a different way so that we don't have to we don't have to ask the teachers every year to pay more in health insurance, right? We can do both things. And it doesn't mean that anybody intentionally made missteps, but the story can tell us what we can do differently moving forward. And that may require us and seems to require us to have some really radical and courageous conversations about how we might have to make different shifts
and how we prioritize and what we prioritize in our district, because you can't continue to come back every year and put this on teachers. We can't, we're not gonna be able to do that. Like, that's not possible, right? So I think what you're saying is absolutely right. But it needs to be both. It needs to be both.
Agree.
People expect, and this might be another thing, I wanna wait till I see some of the new in-between numbers that you talked about, but there, one thing I think people expect a good likelihood of, the out-of-pocket, the premiums increasing on a per-year basis, and perhaps a little bit more going into that dimension as opposed to the out-of-pocket maximum might be another piece of this puzzle too, because we don't want to keep changing plan design, which is why my opposition to plan design changes was so strong last time it was brought up. So but I'm very interested in these in-between options.
I'll get it to you.
All right, thanks, Jean.
Thank you, Jean.
Thank you. Thanks, Jean.
Just security rules.
I'll go back to,
Security drills.
yes. I move that pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 118.07, CP, the written drill evaluations submitted by the principals from all district schools as reviewed be accepted.
Second.
Second.
I'll give it to you, Laura.
Vicki, is there anything you'd like to share, or we just, this is very good, thank you.
Actually, is there anything we can provide with regards to transparency to the public about this? Anything at all?
What were you wanting?
Well, when we talk about school security drills, and there's conversation out there in the public about what that does or does not do to students' mental health, I'm just wondering if there's anything. I know that there's some security issues with the layout of it, but is there anything that we can provide to share so that people know what's going on?
I wouldn't support sharing that document, but if the board wanted me to, I certainly would.
So that's not the document, that's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking, is there anything that we can be transparent about with our families about what we do when it comes to school security drills? Is there anything we can share with them?
What are you wanting to share?
Whatever tells a story that's not compromising safety.
So to let them know about the process.
I mean, we're
about
voting to say that we looked at 42 schools that did their safety drills this last month.
Right.
What other information
So I
are
have
you-
families are asking me, what does that mean? What does that look like? So would there be something they could have access to that they could get from a building principal? Was there anything, because when
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I do, Ms.
That's
Sinico.
what I'm asking.
I believe we have, I'll have to verify, but I think we do have it on our website, the Alice information that goes through what each step is. I'll have to verify that.
That's where I would send them.
Yeah,
Yes,
Lori
ma'am.
says we do.
Let me verify
Laura
that.
says we
Laura
do.
says we do.
The website
Okay.
And it's not like this building, this is where they go, this is what happens. It's
Yes, ma'am.
specifically.
This is what it looks like.
This is what it looks
This
like
is
when
what
your
Alice is.
student is in a
Yeah.
drill, and this is how it works.
Right.
Type of thing.
Right,
So that's what I'm asking.
On the website.
yeah. I'll send the link to you as well.
Thank you.
Oh,
It's right here.
Did you find it?
I'm looking. So it's on our website?
Yes, I
It's
believe so.
under student safety and parent notification. Is that the correct link?
There might be another
Okay,
one.
we'll just
There might be
confirm.
another one.
Okay. That's good to know anyways, okay.
And they're all listed on there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that look like you were?
Yep.
I'll send this to you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Okay,
Thanks,
Sadie?
Vicki.
McCoy?
Thank you, Vicki.
Aye.
Dorf? Oh, I'm sorry. Becker?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Sitnikov?
Aye.
Shelton?
Aye.
Carried 6-0. All right, next, intercity student council report. Are you giving that? Nothing, okay, all right. Well, we do have a meeting next week, so you'll,
We haven't met since our last meeting, so I
Oh.
have nothing to report.
okay, all right. Too much snow. Next is legislative liaison report, and I'll turn that over to Laura.
Okay, since it's 10 minutes to 10, I'm going to breeze through this very quickly.
Thank you.
So the first item is the WASB convention recap, which was basically 4 days of professional development. We got to hear from the new state superintendent and our new governor. But honestly, Herb Cole usually steals the show every year.
He does.
He shows up, he gives away a pile of money, and he takes a lot of great pictures. So,
He works the crowd.
yeah. I was honored to represent our district as a delegate at the Delegate Assembly, where there was discussion, debate, and passage of resolutions that served as a foundation for legislative advocacy and legislative priorities. And you can find the final report online if you go to their legislative that section of their website. Something I do want to touch on, because this is kind of my main takeaway from this convention, was when you are out in our state and you hear people talk about our school district, as we did at this convention, I got a lot of positive feedback about our school district and the work we're doing here in Green Bay. People in the state are watching our district. They know that the work that our teachers and our administrators do is forward-thinking and innovative, and that we're doing a lot of good stuff here. It was also really nice to know that our superintendent is respected in this state. Our school board president is respected in the state. When you've spent enough time in, I think, in education in the state of Wisconsin, people learn that they can trust you and that the work you do is good work. And that was really, really nice. Last year I went to this convention and I was new and I didn't really know what to expect. This year I got a lot more out of it and was able to maybe observe and absorb more. And that was the main thing that I absorbed, was that throughout our state, people like what they see in Green Bay. Let's see here. And of course, the highlight of the convention was seeing Green Bay East Jazz Band perform at one of the convocations. It was really, really fun. So
Did a great job.
they did a really good job, and it was a proud moment. So, item number 2 is the day at the Capitol, and I just want to remind you all that that's on March 13th. I'll be going. I don't know who else is all going. So, I think Brenda, you're going.
It's a
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
So I'm working.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. And there'll be meetings with some of our legislators and meeting, other kinds of meetings as well. It'll be my first time at this, so you've been there before, but I haven't been through this before. And then item number 3 is legislative advocacy and platform. Michelle, Lori, Brenda, and I recently met with Stosh Krasinski and to talk about legislative priorities of our district. And I thought it was a very productive meeting. Michelle, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just, one of the really important parts of what I'm hopeful is that we have a shared legislative platform. I think it's really good to go to the state capitol with one letter, one message, and a couple key pieces that we want to address successfully with our legislators, because it's nice to have we can leave our folders, and we've never really had a formal platform, but it would be really good to hone in on the key parts of the Blue Ribbon Commission that we really want to take away, and move forward with. And I know there's shared interest in many of them, so I'm not sure how we can facilitate that opportunity, but I do think that a collective voice, so that if I'm with a legislator in the community or even in Madison, that I can have that conversation and say, here's what our Board of Education, this is what they're behind, and this is what the district is moving toward, and you gotta help us out here with this, or how can I help you understand our story and that kind of thing, so it's some of the key elements moving forward, because there's a lot of good things out there right now, so it's a question of which ones would best leverage and benefit, so that we don't find ourselves in the future like we're sitting here tonight grappling with these difficult issues of around finance. So maybe we can talk more about that Wednesday to figure out how to go down that road, because I think there's interest.
We probably could just schedule a board retreat around that.
Good.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah, and I think, when we
Because
talk
you and I
about
have talked
wellness,
about
and
this too,
yes. And that way, no matter who's out talking where, we have the same platform. That'd be helpful.
That completes my report.
Okay, thanks, Laura. Next is board member school visits. We had a lot of snow days, so there's fewer visits than.
I had a number of really great things planned that fell through, but I did manage to go to Edison last week and spent several hours, very productive hours, with their building admin meeting and hearing kind of what they're grappling with there, and then also their student services meeting, which is a pretty big group of people at Edison, and it was great to see how they handle some of their most difficult work. And I always get a lot out of those meetings. I plan to do it again. I've done it in the past. Every time I go there, I learn just a lot. So
I attended Footloose on opening night. And at one point, the fog machine, yes, and Jeff was there as well. The fog machine tripped the fire alarm.
Oh, no.
And the kids on stage didn't lose a beat. The show went on, and they ruled out that, we didn't have to file out single file.
The three girls singing the hero song, they just kept singing.
And he just, one of the attendants moved the fog machine away from the sensor, and the show went on.
The little Twizzler girl in one of the trio, the smallest one.
Yeah.
She's Cindy Cantwell's daughter.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
a math person.
Okay.
So,
They did a great job.
yeah, they were really good.
I went, and as did a few of us, went to Silent Night at West High School.
Oh, yeah. I
And
forgot
then,
about that.
yes.
Yeah, that was a wonderful event.
I didn't
Yes,
want
it-
anyone to lose though.
That was a
Yeah, it was a
close game.
Holy
That went down to the wire.
I hear they raised a pile of money, too.
They did really nice.
9,000 or something.
Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah.
He had to count all the tickets in the raffle buckets.
I didn't count it. You give me too much credit, Dr. Lenny. Somebody else counted. I counted about half of them. A lot of tickets, though.
That was a
Yeah,
lot
that
of
was,
tickets. I was watching him score.
There's some nice items.
And you were in charge of the kids zone?
Yeah, that was
Oh, you
my
went
zone.
to the kids zone?
He ran the kids
I ran
zone.
the kids zone committee.
You
I
ran
didn't-
the kids
I-
zone.
I didn't run the thing.
That was
Kids
very
zone.
cool though. The whole you guys did a really, really great job.
Yeah, I think the event was pretty successful. That's the consensus among staff members. They said
Yeah.
it was a
Yeah. Wes did a
but,
nice job
students
hosting.
contributed.
Just explain the kids zone in case someone doesn't know what that is.
We basically, we would supervise kids of a certain age, and we gave them activities to do if they didn't necessarily want to sit down for the entire basketball game. A little too energetic. They could come and either play with puzzles or we had a bounce house that someone donated. I don't wanna say the company, cause I think I'm gonna get it wrong if I say it, and I'll be miscrediting someone.
That's right.
But yeah, they donated it, so yeah, it was a pretty successful event.
I had a couple of things. I went to the, I had a meeting at West to have a more detailed discussion about some of the IB math stuff and where things were with that. And that was a good discussion I had over there. And then I brought my other son Isaiah was playing chess in a chess tournament at Preble a few weeks ago, and that was a well attended event. So. Oh, and I also went to the chess tournament that was held at Washington. Used to be annually at Franklin. It moved to Washington, but we've had it continuously for, it must be, at least 15 years, I think we've had that, and that was a good event as well.
I went to Silent Night as well. Brought my daughter, and had to stand about 10 feet away from her because it's not cool to be with your mother.
You got within 10 feet of her?
I was 10 feet. Yeah, and then I was scheduled to go to a few other schools, and then there were snow days, so I did get to Elmore and had a really nice visit with Stacy.
I went to MacArthur. I went to East 3 times in the past 3 weeks, which has been great. I was over at Edison, and Aldo Leopold had their K-5 choral concert, which was great. My son committed to not singing a single word on stage.
Did he succeed?
He did, and he also played the triangle and managed to drop the triangle as well. So, you know, he's my son. But it was great. It was really fun. And shout out to the Aldo teachers, Eva and Margie is a parent over there, but my kids are both doing the DI work, so they are like really working hard every Saturday, 4 hours.
Is that Destination Imagination?
I don't think my kids realized how much time it was going to take when I
was a
signed
coach
them up
of
for
it's
it.
still called Odyssey of the Mind.
Yeah,
you know,
but the teachers facilitating that are just kicking butt, and the amount of time that they've put into it is really incredible. So.
All right, next we have teaching and learning, and I guess we have
Playing the part
nothing.
of Ed.
Playing the part of Ed, we have nothing.
We had nothing, well, we
It
did
says
have,
none.
we discussed the International Baccalaureate math curriculum and how next year's gonna be a transitional year. Okay. And we had no action items.
All right, organizational support.
Organizational support, we didn't have any action items under that one either. We talked about the benefits and brought that forward to discussion from, so, which, wouldn't that have gone here?
Pardon?
That could have gone here too then, I suppose. But it didn't, we did under superintendent's report, but that's, that was the org support topic. And anything else from org support would be consent agenda.
Okay, you wanna make that motion?
Sure, I will move the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Oh, sorry.
Sandy?
Sitnikow?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
McCoy? Aye. Shelton?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
This is the time of year when we get the submissions for retirement. There are a lot of people listed. It's kind of, see the history of the district pass before your eyes.
All right, somebody want to move the,
So, move to adjourn? No.
into
Are we
closed
moving?
session?
Oh, that's right. Okay, move that the board reconvene in closed session in room 337 pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85, paren 1, paren E,
deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business, whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, more specifically to wit, dependent eligibility, verification, audit contract, and school resource officer contract, and pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85, paren 1, paren C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility to wit the superintendent's performance evaluation.
Is there a second? Sandy?
Becker?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Shelton? Aye. Warren?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Sitnikov?
Aye. Carried 6-0.
District's Board of Education meeting. Please visit the school district's website, www.gbaps.org, to view the program again. If you cannot fully access the information on this video, please let us know the accessibility issue you are having by calling 920-448-2025 or by email at communications@gbaps.org. We will try to provide the information to you in an alternative format and/or make the necessary improvements to make the information accessible.